Good afternoon. During the declared emergency in the City of Toronto, Committee of Adjustment virtual public hearings are being conducted by electronic means through WebEx, an online digital platform, and streamed on the Toronto City Planning YouTube channel. These measures are necessary to comply with physical distancing requirements and a provincial order that limits attendance at public hearings. My name is Bruce Mullock. Panel members this afternoon are Joanne Hayes, Lisa Valentini, Sahir Bayat, and Aaron Cheng. This will be a virtual public hearing. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may do so by watching on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connecting either by computer, a phone or tablet app, or by telephone. All participants will automatically be muted on entry. And when his or her item is called, each participant will be unmuted by the moderator, one person at a time. Only the committee members will be participating by video. Registered participants will be participating by audio only. We ask that you also mute your devices until you are called on to speak. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. In accordance with Sections 45 and 53 of the Planning Act, 1990 as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustment of the City of Toronto is called to order. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning bylaw that apply to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property in order to create new lots. Anyone in attendance today who wants to receive a copy of the committee's decision on an application must submit a written request by email. Please ensure that you include your name and address, email address, because Committee of Adjustment and the TLAB will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email only. You may not agree with the decision of the committee. Decisions may be appealed to Toronto Local Appeal Body, TLAB, or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. I will call each item in the order that it is listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the agent or applicant will proceed with their presentation if so required by the committee. The committee may ask questions and/or take the matter into the committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the agent or the applicant, will be given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will comment to you when you are approaching the mark. When addressing the committee, please clearly state your name and address, and please remember to confine your remarks to the matters outlined in the application. The agent will proceed first and may be asked to make a presentation. Please note that the committee may not entertain revisions to proposals at the hearing today. The committee may decide to defer the application if substantially revised to ensure the revised application is accurate and that all those entitled to notice of the application are informed of the changes. Then, individuals either in support of or opposed to the application will be invited to speak. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after the speaker has finished the presentation. When all the speakers are finished, the applicant or agent will have an opportunity to rebut, but only those issues that were raised by the speakers. And that will mark the end of discussion. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, are there any declarations? Oh, first of all, I will ask about declarations of interest. Staff and panel, are there any declarations of interest by panel or staff in this time slot? Thank you. Hearing none. Madam Deputy Secretary Treasurer, have you received any requests for deferral?
Not in this time slot. There is one at 3:30, however.
One at 3:30. Okay, thank you.
Oh, pardon me. 4:30. 4:30.
The 4:30 time slot.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. And are there any files to be closed?
No.
No. We move now to the agenda, beginning with item number 21, 348A Crawford Street. On this application, we have before us the materials which the applicant submitted. There are revised site plans and zoning notice. One photograph of the property, covering letter from the applicant, an email from the applicant received October 19. We have email correspondence from Community Planning, City of Toronto. So let's have the applicant join us then by stating your name.
Good afternoon, committee members. Mr. Chair, I am Graham Barrett, agent for the owners of 348A Crawford Street.
Thank you. Panel members, would we like a presentation on this application, or would you prefer to go straight to questions? To Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Just want to confirm that the applicant is making an amendment to the variances with respect to rear soft landscaping to go to 31% and 34.93 meters squared. Am I correct?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Okay, so that's variance number 5 then.
Yes, it is. That's the
Thank
result of conversations with planning staff.
Thank you.
Very good. If there are no further questions of the applicant, then is panel ready to move forward toward a motion? Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Certainly, I'd be prepared to. Having reviewed the materials on file and with the amendment now to variance number 5 with respect to the soft landscaping, I can support this application. I believe that the variances being requested are not out of line with the neighborhood, and planning has indicated that they are okay with the revisions, and if my colleagues have no further comment, I would move a motion to approve the application as amended with no conditions.
Thank you. It It is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands, please. And that's carried unanimously. The application is approved. We move next to item number 2233, McGregor Avenue. Where we are looking at the material submitted by the applicant, there are 4 photographs of the property. There's a site plan showing the tree protection zones, and there is correspondence in support from 49 McGregor, 28 McGregor, and 30 McGregor. So let's bring in the agent, who will ask to join us by stating your name, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Committee. Mario Silva of 100 Uxbridge, on behalf of this application.
Thank you very much. Panel members, any questions for Mr. Silva? Would you like a presentation? Not hearing any questions. Are we ready to move to a motion? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I found this an interesting application, a very tasteful one at that. Having reviewed all the documents, I find absolutely no reason not to support it. So if my colleagues don't have any objections, I would like to forward a motion to approve as is, no conditions attached.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? It is seconded by Ms. Valentini. So moved and seconded to approve. All in favor? Show of hands. Unanimous vote. Motion carried, application approved. And that brings us to number 23-257 Dunvegan. On this, there are a number of late arriving materials: a revised site plan, 28 October, cover letter from the agent, 28 October, presentation material, 28 October, arborist report, 29 October, from Central Tree Care. There is a revised tree protection plan, 29 October. There are 5 form letters in opposition from 242 Dunvegan, 263 and 496 Dunvegan, 71 and 73 Old Forest Hill. And there are presentation photos in opposition submitted by Mr. Chat of 255 Dunvegan, received November 1. Also on file are the materials submitted by the applicant. There's a preliminary drainage report received in July, a tree protection plan by Boxer Architects from August, there is correspondence in support, 238, 251, 240 Dunvegan. There is correspondence in opposition from 253, 242, 255, 259 Dunvegan. And there is a total of 7 form letters in opposition, signed by the owners or the occupants of 246, 259, 242, 263, 496, 71 and 73 Old Forest Hill Road. And finally, there are presentation photographs, which we've already mentioned, submitted by Mr. Chat. Very good. So at this stage, we'll ask the applicant to join us, please, by stating your name.
Oh, I think I'm unmuted now. Thank you. My name is Michael Goldberg from Goldberg Group, 2098 Avenue Road, Toronto, M5M4A8, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon to you. You will have 5 minutes to address your presentation to the panel. Please carry on now.
May I request that my presentation materials be brought to the screen?
Chair, may I just ask one point of clarification before the applicant starts the presentation?
Go ahead.
Or if he could speak initially to what I understand are going to be amendments to the variances as listed in the public notice. I think variance number 3 and variance number 6.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, to the member asking, as a result of that is not the presentation material, but yes, number 3 on the screen, the last number says 24.32, and we request that the number be reduced to 23.14, and then variance number 6, which is at the bottom of the screen, the let me just see. Yes, it's where it says 5.5. That number increases, which means the variance is smaller, from 5.5 to 6.6. So we've increased the front yard setback.
Okay, let's just check with staff. Staff, we've got those changes. Please repeat the last change you made.
In variance 6, it says the detached dwelling for the above ground main front wall will be located not at 5.5. The amendment is from 5.5 to 6.6 from the south front lot line.
Thank you.
Okay, those are my presentation materials. So members of the committee, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. These amendments arise from consultation with community planning, Ms. Catherine Young, and with urban forestry as well, because Ms. Young requested that the front vestibule be reduced to 2.5 meters as a projection. If you turn to the, you see the figure 6, you can see in the very southwest corner or bottom left-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner of the site plan, the only projection into the front yard setback is the front vestibule. So we've increased this front yard setback to there. The rest of the house will conform to the front yard setback requirement, and you can see the front porch, which is a one-story porch of the house to the south, and it does not project in front of the covered front porch of the house to the south. So, and it's really no bigger than a front porch. So it's just arranged differently as an architectural expression, but it's a normal projection into the front yard setback, I would say. We've satisfied community planning through these consultations. We've also had a number of conversations, site visits, and email and other communication with the urban forestry, and that's why the site plan has been revised as it is. Urban forestry expressed concern about 2 trees in the rear yard, and we've removed all rear yard related works from the plan for now at this point. None of them required site required minor variances, but urban forestry was concerned about the two trees. One was a coniferous tree and one was a locust tree. You can see them right there in the backyard. And our landscape art in the future, should this be approved, our landscape architect will work with urban forestry to preserve those trees, whether they can be taken out. The locust tree was always planned to be preserved in any event. The coniferous tree right in the middle was planned to be removed. But we will work with urban forestry and we'll just remove that from the plan. So what's before committee is complete tree preservation in the backyard. There was a tree in the front yard that was in the walkway next to the driveway. Urban forestry had originally thought it was a regulated tree and asked that it be preserved. We went out on site with urban forestry. Urban forestry remeasured the tree and concluded it was not a regulated tree, and therefore we're not asking for any further, we're not asking that it be preserved or denied the application on that basis. We understand from urban forestry that they're satisfied now with all the changes we've made to the site plan and to the tree measurement. In terms of the third floor that's being requested, if I can ask you to turn to figures 7, you can see this is a partial third floor and it's stepped back from the sides. If you turn to figure 8, you can see there it's stepped back, and then also on figure 9.
Well,
you can see it's stepped back considerably both from the front and from the back. So really, while there is a third floor, it mimics the angular plane of a sloped roof. If you can imagine taking an angular plane from the corner of the second floor to the corner of the third floor, it has the same type of massing effect. If you could turn to page 3, please. Or I should say figure 3. Thank you very much. These are houses in the immediate vicinity of the subject site. They are under construction, have been approved. Some of them have third floors. You can see in the bottom left-hand corner is a modern vernacular house just around the corner on Russell Hill Road with a third floor with probably similar, if not less, step backs than what we have. The one in the top right-hand corner is a house that's under construction 3 houses away from the subject site, which was approved by committee. I will say most of the length and depth variances that are before you, not all of it, to be clear, but most of it are below grade elements. Under the backyard won't be steep. There is some exceedances above grade, but I would say in the context of respecting and reinforcing the existing physical character of Forest Hill, these are well within the tolerance level that exists within Forest Hill.
I must ask you to make your final comment now, please.
Yes, rear yards don't line up in this neighborhood. It's very common that they do not. So thank you very much, and I'd be pleased to answer all your questions.
Thank you very much. Let's proceed now to those that have registered to speak to this application. And moderator, who will our first speaker be?
Mr. Chair, our first speaker will be Keith Van Winters. Amber Stewart, I'm trying to contact her.
Thank you. Okay, then we shall ask Keith Van Winters to join us by stating your name, please.
Hold on. Hi, Keith. We are having some issues hearing you. If you can just turn up your microphone volume or speak clearly into it. You can try that first. Okay. Mr. Chair, I can try giving him a call in the meantime to fix that out.
Go to the next speaker.
Yes. Keats, I'll give you a call.
Moderator?
Yep.
You do need to adjust the clock, please.
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you.
Let's go to the next speaker while we're sorting out that technical issue and ask George and Sherry Kreiser to join us by stating name, please.
Hi, we are not speaking on this matter. We're just listening.
Very good. All right. Thank you very much.
Hi, Naomi Himmel. You are unmuted.
Yes. Am I, can you hear me now?
You're now with the panel, Naomi. Just state your name, please.
Okay. I am Dr. Naomi Himmel. I live at 259 Dunvegan Road for the past 20 years. It is the most unique street I have ever lived on. We get along with all our neighbors and we watch out for one another. It has been our own community with a feeling of its own. All the houses fit together and none of them dominate each other. What is proposed at 257 Dunvegan will change this negatively and forever. For the start, the information they provided is not accurate at best. The front variance application states that my vestibule extends outwards from my house. This is misleading. In actuality, I do not have a vestibule by definition, which is 2 doors enclosed by a space. I have what is called an open porch in front of my house. As suggested by this application, mine is simple, only an open porch to shade from the rain. There is no vestibule. The fact that they have changed it from the original and shortened it makes no difference and actually takes away from the view of the street. Their variance proposal in front from 12 feet to 8 feet, although reduced from the original plans, interferes with the setbacks. It interferes with the rest of the houses on the street and blocks the sight line and is a major break from the present street view and is in contradiction with the intended bylaws. I can't emphasize this enough because it will block the view and change the street look and may set a precedent for the future. Having collected letters of objection from my neighbors myself, in fact, we have 8, the person supporting them down the street is using them for an architectural design on their own house. So I suggest this is bias. The lady across the road, I could not get her because she is on, she's very ill. And in fact, the person beside the house 3 doors down actually is on Old Forest Hill Road, of which Mr. Goldberg cited, is in fact, his neighbor is objecting strongly from any front variance. So our neighbors are not happy with what's gone on 3 doors down. And this was plowed through in the summertime in the beginning of COVID. And we honestly were taken broadside and didn't realize what was being built. Having collected the letters of objection from my neighbors, they were very concerned about the front of the house and how the variance changes the entire character of the street. Please note, architectural picture number 7, site visit from November 1st. I think that Mr. Larry Chad actually, I think it's number 4, sorry, it's number 4 and 7 from Larry Chad on page 2 of the application. Objection.
Just hang on a
sheet.
moment. We're going to try to bring that up here. So let's just.
Okay, and there's number 7 from Mr. Goldberg's one that shows it as well.
Okay. Well, while we're trying to bring those up, you can go ahead.
My house as an open little porch that shades from the rain, not a vestibule by any means. Can I continue, sir? Because I only have 5 minutes.
You may continue. I'm taking into consideration. We're just trying to bring up those photographs, but please continue in the meantime.
Okay. Secondly, with regards to the variance and the length of the house and back, one should note my garage is underground, so you really don't see it from next door. They have implied that they're from their application, which is inaccurate. And my house does not extend to the point marked on the drawings. That is actually my underground, partially garage, and is not 1 story. This is misinformation and should not be used as a reference point for further justification of variance for the extension of the present house. The backyard variance, i.e. 17 feet past the existing house, significantly reduces my morning and afternoon light, my line of sight from my windows, and thereby affects my enjoyment I get from my backyard, my garden, my privacy that I have enjoyed and taken pride in for 20-odd years.
Is this the photograph? Is this the photograph you wanted to bring attention to?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One must also note that the 100-year-old black lotus tree should be protected under the Tree Protection Act of the City of Toronto, where the drip line of the tree right now extends past the roof line of the existing house, not where they'd like to extend it, but of the existing house. I understand by suggesting that this tree has no value when it is part of the tree protection bylaw, as I understand it now, is inaccurate. Why have they suddenly dropped backyard pool plans, and the 43-foot gazebo is suspicious to me? Building the backyard variance there with their first and second story would remove 50% of the main limb and branches. This is a total disregard to preservation and drip lines, etc. Their protection zone is inaccurate as shown on their site plan and should extend further without concrete decking blocking protection zones. In summary, the proposal of the length of this house will block my sun from the east and southeast, my privacy, decrease my enjoyment of my backyard space, as I love to spend time in my backyard gardening. Please see photograph 6 from November 1st.
I must ask you to make your final
Page
comment
2,
now,
the
please.
house. There, that's it. That's lovely. That shows how that tree comes right over.
I must ask you
How
to
are
make your
supposed to
final
build
comment
a first
now,
and
please.
Second story. I am also concerned by the elevator garage given Toronto
I must
winters.
ask you to make your final comment now, please.
Okay, you didn't give me enough time, sir, because you were looking for the pictures. I
I
am very
permitted you
concerned
to.
about, I just have one more paragraph. I am very concerned about the elevator garage given Toronto winters. They propose to put an entrance to the garage at the same level of the landscaping. How are they going to use it in the wintertime when trying to get in and out? They will obviously come back in the future to ask for another variance to cover the lifting
Your time is up
mechanism.
now.
This
Okay. Next
Chair,
speaker.
can I ask the speaker a question, please?
You have a
Can I ask a
question for that speaker?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, thank you. Yep.
That's good. Let's go. There's a question
just-
for Naomi Himmel.
Hi, I'm just curious. You mentioned something about the garage on the plans, and it shows it as a one-story stucco garage on your house at the rear. Is she still there?
Yes,
she's
that
there.
is
Oh,
not
hi.
my house. That is actually the garage, which is sub-level. It's sunken.
So that's what I wanted to clarify. So you're saying that one story that
It's
it
not
shows on
one
the site
story.
plan- Okay, so are you saying that as it shows on the site plan, that is below grade?
Right. It's
Okay.
not completely below grade. It sticks out a bit, but it is not one story the way they would have you portray it as part of my house.
Okay, thank you.
Can I talk?
I'm sorry. No, I did give you extra time because we were looking for the photograph, but I also allowed you to speak through that time. So we do have other speakers, and we're going to move on now to the next one. And we'll ask Leslie Gales, please, to join us by stating your name.
Hi, hello, Leslie Gales here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do hear you very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate the time to the board and to the chair. This is the first time I have ever gotten involved in this kind of objection. The house just west of me is still under construction, and had I seen accurate pictures of the the variance that they had in the front, I would have definitely objected. If you look at the sight line from my house to where the end of the street on Russell Hill, you will see that there is a straight line of homes. I do not understand why this new owner requires to alter that line. I find that offensive. And we do, as Naomi was saying, have a beautiful street. And I am not sure from a visual point of view where that benefits the street. I don't understand why this neighbor requires more frontage request and a variance for that. I should have objected to the neighbor beside me, but I felt that we have a nice neighborly street, that it was ridiculous to object, because I just have to live with that neighbor in the long term, so I didn't want to start off on bad footing. But when I saw this variance, I am very upset that he or she is looking to change the front sight line. They talk about it as just being the vestibule. Well, why don't they just move it back? Why do they need more? I'm worried also about the trees, because my neighbor to the west of me ruined some of my trees that weren't conservation protected, and I had some very old trees from the time we moved in over 20 years ago. Those trees died, and I had to replace them at my expense. I did request my neighbor to pitch in, considering I didn't object to anything, and he basically said to me that I didn't have to pay for his landscaping. Why should he have to pay for mine? I had to redo all the landscaping in order to protect the overarching house that he has built. Knowing this, I find it disgraceful that this was allowed to proceed, and as a result, I am very upset with the front yard variance that I see just to provide somebody with extra square footage. That's my comments.
Thank you very much. Are there questions for this speaker panel? No. All right then. We have another registered speaker standing by. And we'll ask that speaker to join us by stating your name, please.
Hi, Larry. You are unmuted. You're able to speak. Larry Chad. Hi, Larry. If you can unmute your microphone on your end.
Talking on the phone.
Can you go ahead?
I'm talking on the phone. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
My name is Dr. I'll talk in the... Hello, do you hear me?
We do hear you. Go ahead and speak.
My name is Dr. Larry Chad. I live at 255 Dunvegan Road. Could you please put up the slides that Naomi alluded to? They're my supplemental slides, the 6 slides.
Larry, if you can refrain from muting and unmuting yourself on your end, I'll unmute you on my end. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Chad.
According to city planning, this is the immediate context of what we're talking. I've lived here for 27 years, and there's only been one construction in all that time. It's the house at 249 Dunvegan, where they just added a bedroom on top of the garage, and it had no influence on the street. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is a picture of my backyard. I wanted to point out the big tree on the left. That is the Norway maple tree.
Larry, if you can stop unmuting yourself, I will unmute you on our end. If you unmute yourself, we cannot hear you. Go ahead. For you, Mr. Chair, we are having some technical issues, I believe. I can try giving him a call. Until then, we also have Keys on the line.
We have another speaker waiting?
Yes.
In that case, let's return to this speaker once we can establish good contact and go on to the next one.
Hi, Keys.
Good afternoon, committee and Mr. Chair. This is Case Van Winters. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do, Case.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you. I reside at 253 Dunvegan, 3 houses over from the subject property. I object to a number of the issues, and the first one I'd like to take a point that Mr. Goldberg had made in his initial presentation, that the length of the houses on this street are varied. They are in fact not varied, as came up in an application that he also represented at 251 Dunvegan Road, which was unanimously rejected by the Committee of Appeal, Committee of Adjustment. The length of the houses on this particular block do not exceed anywhere 17.5 meters. The length of the greatest length of houses in the neighborhood, in the greater neighborhood, do not exceed 20.5 meters. So a request for 23 plus meters is not in accordance to what's currently on the street. I have major objection to the vestibule for the same reason that's already been discussed, so I won't get into that anymore. It would just ruin the character of the neighborhood to have an enclosed room go into the front yard. As far as the height is concerned, the street is currently all two-story and mostly three-story houses with slanted roofs. A flat roof at 11 meters would be a disturbance again to the neighborhood. The other thing that I know Ms. Himmel was trying to bring up, and I know it's not part of the variance, but I think it should be a major concern, is the car elevator that is scheduled to be constructed. It would be, in my mind and in any contractor that I've spoken to, impossible for an elevator to operate 12 months of the year that is not protected by some sort of structure. And it is my fear that much like they have currently withdrawn, and as Mr. Goldberg said, for now withdrawn their application for a pool and for changes to the backyard trees, the same would hold for this particular elevator and the structure that would eventually be constructed above the elevator, as it could not possibly operate without any kind of coverage. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see if there are any questions for you. Panel members? No. Thank you very much. We'll see now if we can return to the speaker just previous with whom we had difficulty making voice contact.
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Hello?
Hello.
Could you please put up my 6 slides? Go. First one, I wanted to show the panel members and chairman the street. It's very different than the other streets in the area. This is the immediate context. There's no construction on this street of anything. And all the slides that Mr. Goldberg showed have no bearing on this street, which has been protected and should be protected. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is my backyard. The huge tree on the left is a Norway maple tree, which is going to be killed because there's no way they could protect it. The only place the roots are growing right now are north of the garage on the left, which he's going to cement over. There's only a narrow strip of soft grass over there. In his site plan picture, which you showed at the beginning with the green, they underestimated and gave a misconception of the size of this tree. You could put that on if you like. The site, okay, we'll go through this. This is, no, put this one, okay. This is my deck in the back. I have a stone barbecue deck, and you could see what I look out onto now. With the proposed extension of the building, which is a big variance, I am going to be looking up into 2 stories of concrete wall with lots of windows looking down on me. And this is what I look on now. That's what I'm going to have. It's going to overlap my lot by my deck by 15 feet. And with Ms. Himmel's lot, it's going to overlap hers by 17 feet. Next, please. Okay, this we've seen. Next one. Next one, please. Next one. Next one. I wanted to show the panel members that misconception about the one-car garage. You see the building with the chimney, the white building? That's 257. Right in front of it is what they call a one-story garage. This is actually the roof of the sub-grade garage. Complete misconception as to what's going on. So anyhow, what my concerns are have to do with the front of the house, as everyone have talked about. It has to do with the garage, and most importantly, as it affects me, because the building is extended contrary to zoning bylaw, whereas I have a beautiful view of trees and all types of flora, etc., I'm going to be looking onto a blank wall. I'm going to have no sunshine because it's facing the west. That deck is bright sunshine all afternoon. I'm going to have no light. My family room goes out onto that deck. The family room is so bright that in the afternoon I have a TV on the west wall on the east wall facing west. I can't even watch it because the sun's shining on it. That's going to be all eliminated because I'm going to have a concrete wall blocking all of that. So, in summary, I'm not going to keep you longer. I think these variances don't meet any of the 4 questions for approval. In this regard, they cannot be considered minor. They affect my light, my sunlight, my view, and my privacy. There's going to be a deck on the 3rd floor which is going to overlook both my lot and Dr. Himmel's lot. In terms of the zoning bylaws, with respect to size, setback, privacy, limitation of light views, and openness, this contravenes all of that. These variances do not maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. City official plan, and in particular section 4.1.5, states that development in established neighborhoods will respect and reinforce the existing physical character of each geographic neighborhood. The neighborhood that Mr. Goldberg is presenting is not the immediate neighborhood. This street is well preserved and should be maintained the way it is. The official plan also talks about providing that the urban forest is essential to the city's character.
I'll ask you to make your final comments now, please. I'll ask you to make...
my final comment. By virtue of the tree damage that they are going to cause with my Norway maple tree, perhaps with the black locust tree on their property, and with my mulberry tree, all of which are going to encroach on their building plans, these trees are going to be damaged and killed. So for all those reasons, I strongly object to approving these variances. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel members, any questions for this speaker? Hearing none. Okay. So, as we return to the agent, who will have an opportunity now to respond and rebut, what we have heard from those who spoke were the following types of concerns. First of all, concern about the front streetscape, which we heard from a number of people is very deeply valued because it's uniform. The houses line up. No one house dominates the front streetscape, and the neighbors value that. So they oppose the front variance. Then, with respect to the length of the house and its extension into the rear, much concern by those on either side with respect to their loss of view, sunlight, privacy from a deck, as all of a sudden an extension appears where there is now none. Concern about possible collateral damage to trees that are on the neighboring properties from the excavations. But I think the front streetscape and the rear impact are the ones that I would really like to hear responded to by the applicant. Applicant, go ahead.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, members of the panel. I will say the front vestibule projects into the front yard the same as a front porch did. But having said that, and in the spirit of compromise, because of the concern, I did just speak to my client while I was muted, and we are prepared to withdraw the front yard setback variance. So there probably will still be an open front porch, as all the houses on this street have open front porches, as Ms. Himble's property has a front porch. You saw that, but the front yard variance, we're prepared to withdraw.
Okay, I'd like you then, excuse me, just so we capture this as we go along, if you would tell us what number variance you're referring to and express your desire to eliminate it.
Okay, yes. Yes, it would be variance number 6.
Variance number 6. And
But I will
Sorry,
say.
Just a
for
second.
clarification, do you
Just
still
a-
need the second part of variance number 6 for the basement?
Because that's an underground element, and we would like to have that. But in terms of what people really spoke about, in terms of the character of the street, it would be the first part of variance. Thank you for raising that, Member Hayes. The other issues.
Okay, just a moment. Let's go slowly here because we're going to amend this now, and this will be the way that this application stands when it receives a vote. So on number 6, if I understand you, you wish to remove the wording that says the minimum required front yard setback is 9.34, right down to will be located 5.5 meters from the south front lot line. But you wish to leave.
Yes.
You wish to leave in the next portion, which reads the detached dwelling for the basement parking space will be located 0.76 from the south. That part remains.
Correct.
Okay. Staff got that? Very good. Okay. Any other changes you're making to the wording of the variances?
No, but if I can ask, figure 6 of our presentation be put on the screen, please? This relates to the length and to the backyard comments that were raised. This would be figure 6 of the presentation. And I apologize for asking for that, but I think it helps illustrate the point I'm about to make to members of the committee. Thank you. So for the purpose of this application, there's nothing suspicious, as suggested by one of the speakers, about removing all the rear yard elements. For the purpose of this application, there is complete tree preservation in the rear yard. Urban Forestry has vetted this, and Urban Forestry was satisfied with this approach. If, in the future, the applicant wishes to proceed with anything that goes on near those trees, then Urban Forestry will have to be consulted by law. And that's just the case. But no variances are related to that, and we're not asking for any of the rear yard elements. As far as this application is concerned, at least at this point in time, it's grass around those trees. And the trees that was most concerned are all being protected on and off site. There's no infringement on the trees. The gray is, now I'm going to just move to building length. In relation to the other properties, the building on to the west, which is at the bottom part of the house on this screen, that's the property to the west is Ms. Himmel or Dr. Himmel's house. We don't extend, whether that garage is above grade. It may have a lower element and it may not be a full 1 story as depicted on there, but it's above grade. And we don't extend beyond that, that garage. You can see for our above grade element, that's a normal property to property relationship. On the other side, if you look at the survey, and I'm not asking you to turn there, we're removing a 1 story detached garage with a pitched roof. And you can see the relationship between this house above grade and Dr. Chad's house to the east is a very conventional relationship from house to house. And I will say, on the point that was made by a few about the importance of this street, I think that's fair comment, that this is a street that they know, they love, and so on, but one street does not make a neighborhood in official plan terms. The last comment I'm going to make is, could you turn to the first page of this presentation? Thank you. So you see where the subject site is in red. 1, 2, 3 houses to the west. There's that orange house, which is,
I must ask you to make your final comment now, please.
my final comment is, can you turn to page 3, please? Figure 3. Okay, that's the house. That's the house. Its address is on Old Forest Hill, but it fronts on the same street. And that was approved by committee. There was no hearing required. And that, you can see by the drawing, has a 37.01 length. It's 0.79 FSI.
Your time is now up.
Thank you very much. I hope that's helpful to members of committee.
Let's see if panel members have any questions for you. Panel members?
Yep, I do.
There's a question from Ms. Valentini. Go ahead.
It's more of there further amendments to the variance. Since you've removed the front yard setback variance, is that going to trigger amendments to the length and depth, or maybe just depth? I'm not sure.
It would, not depth, but length. Yes.
Length.
Yeah, by 2.5 meters.
Further questions of the applicant, panel?
So, but does that amend the variances, since we're looking at the variances?
So variance number 3 would be, I think it would be 2 meters less, so it would be 21.14, not 23.14.
Let's go slowly then until we capture this properly. So variance 3, final line, will have a building length of, you tell me.
I believe it will be 21 meters.
21 meters. Thank you.
That's a fair question, and thank you for raising that, Ms. Valentina.
Thanks indeed. Mr. Byett, you had a question.
Yes, I've heard a couple of times, and I've mentioned it's correct that the rear in-ground swimming pool is no longer, and the cabana are no longer elements of this application. Is that correct? In which case, the purpose of the application presumably would need to be changed.
Oh, quite frankly, well, the answer to your question is yes. Those elements are no longer part of this application, but I will say, sir, that no variance was ever associated with those elements.
I understand, yes.
But we have removed it from the site plan.
So they should be removed from the purpose. Yes, no question. And let's just get that wording down here now. See what so we agree on what we are removing from the purpose of the application. The rear ground floor terrace remains. Rear cabana ancillary structure, rear in-ground pool, those, my understanding are, those come out. And in the front yard, a car lift located in the driveway, that remains.
That stays.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Byett. That's important too. We have now, the application now, as we've amended, reflects what's been discussed here and agreed to and proposed by, or asked for by the applicant. Okay. Any further questions or comment, or questions for the applicant? Yes, go ahead, Mr. Byett.
Just a quick one, and
Sure.
This is just for clarification. I know you're making some adjustments to the front yard setback. You've amended that piece. What's curious for me is the basement and the car lift that really extends beyond the main building, so that would protrude into. I don't know. I don't think that constitutes somehow an infringement on the front yard setback, but that's one of those unusual things that kind of caught my eye. I don't think anybody's been concerned about the fact that the basement wall would then extend beyond the front of the home. People have expressed concern about, of course, your car lift and the how efficiently it may or may not function throughout the year. Did you have any comment on that?
Yes, the driveway will look conventional when the car lift, of course, is not being used. The car lift is not new technology. It's been used in a number of neighborhoods. There is one or two in Forestville. There are some in Rosedale, and they are configured similar to what is proposed here. So I think this owner would not be investing in this technology if they didn't think it was tried and proven. And this particular architect, Mr. Boxer, has utilized it in a number of occasions. So we're quite confident that it is an appropriate thing to do, and basically its top plate will just basically be the surface of the driveway when it's not operational, which will be the vast majority of the time.
Thank you.
You're
Okay.
welcome, sir.
Ms. Hayes, go ahead. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
So as we're dealing with amendments to the application, further to this discussion, will the FSI not be adjusted with the adjustments to the removal of the vestibule? And what's the new number, both in a percentage or points and the square meters?
Okay, I'll do that math quite quickly. If you could just give me maybe 30 seconds.
Just take your time and do the math.
I can see that the front vestibule, oh, there it is. Okay. 3.5 times it's 11.6 square meters. So,
Yeah.
That reduced it minus 11.6 meters square. I apologize for the time, but
Take your time. Take your time, please. Let's get it right.
so the GFA, this is on variant 5, the GFA becomes 568.4, and then let me just, oh great, I've got the lot area here, divided by 878.67, right, it's 0.65.
0.65 is the new FSI reading on number 5, and 568.4.
So your FSI is increasing?
No, it's going from 0.66 to 0.65.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had it as 0.61, my mistake, sorry.
No worries.
Okay, and the new figure for number 5 for square meters is 568.4. Very good. Good point. Thank you for catching that also. At this stage, I think we're ready to take the application into panel, into committee, for whatever discussion is needed, moving toward a decision. So we are now in committee on this application. Who would like to begin? Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Okay, this has actually become very complicated in terms of the numbers, and it's unfortunate that some of these discussions couldn't have been had in advance of the hearing, because it leaves us with, trying to be very, very, very precise in terms of what is now before us and what we're asked to consider. Having said that, with respect to the application, I was very concerned with respect to the lotting pattern and the streetscape, so the removal of the front yard setback variance at grade alleviates that concern. I think there are different styles of architecture in the broader neighborhood, not necessarily right next door. I think the step back on the third floor, both at the front and the rear, softens the massing of the height variance. The length and depth variances above ground, I think, are supportable by other built forms in the neighborhood. And I would be prepared to support the amended application. Those would be my initial thoughts.
Thanks very much. Other comment panel? I'll throw my thoughts in at this stage too. I too feel that as amended now, this application is supportable. Mr. Byatt?
Just a comment. I think I concur with both yourself and Ms. Hayes. One of the dilemmas in this situation, or one of the issues that always arises, is that a change has entered Dunvegan, and some of the changes are not the kinds of changes that residents there for a long time would like to see. But the reality is that there are changes that will occur. I think with all the amendments that we've seen thus far, it becomes a supportable application.
Thank you.
I don't have anything to add. I think we had almost like a design session to improve the application to something that is acceptable.
Thank you. Okay. Is anyone ready with the motion? Yes, Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
I would just ask first, can we just ask staff if they believe they've captured every change that has been made to this, or do we have to seek any clarification again there? Just because there's so many changes.
There were many changes.
Ask staff if they've captured all those.
We'll do that. There were many changes, and they came in spurts and fits. So, staff, do
I think we have them. We can recap, though. The purpose has changed to delete the cabana and the swimming pool. Variance number 3, the building length has been changed to 21 meters. Variance number 5, the GFA is 0.65 times the area of the lot, or 568.4 square meters. And variance number 6, the reference to the front yard setback as it relates to the above ground has been deleted.
Very good.
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
so on that basis, and since we've got those all captured appropriately, for the reasons stated, I am prepared to move a motion to approve the application. I don't believe there's any conditions.
Yes, I think you're right. There are no conditions. So, seconded by Mr. Byatt. So it is moved and seconded to approve the amended application without condition. Those in favor, please, show of hands. And that is a unanimous vote to carry that motion and to so approve the amended application. Panel moves along to number 24, 264 Beach Ave. And on 264 Beach, we have before us applicant's submission, revised site plan dated November 1, commenting reports from transportation, urban forestry, and community planning. There's one piece of opposition correspondence from 258 Beach Ave, Terry Ruggles. And we'll go now to the agent and ask the agent to join us, please, by stating your name.
Hi, Nicholas Dell. You are unmuted if you're able to speak. Mr. Dell, we are not able to hear you. If you can unmute yourself on your end or increase your microphone volume so we are able to hear you. I will unmute you on our end. Please refrain from unmuting yourself through WebEx. Go
Very
ahead.
good. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we do. Very good. Good afternoon. Please state your name.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee, chair, staff. My name is Nicholas Dell. I'm a planning consultant and agent for the owner of the property at 264 Beach Avenue. You've got 5 variances in front of you, and I'll quickly go through them, but I'd like to identify for the benefit of your time that we're really seeking some support with condition. for
Nicholas,
variance number 5.
Nicholas, just hang on for one moment. I just want to check whether we do have another registered speaker.
Mr. Chair, we have a late registration from Elon Musket as well, so 2 extra speakers.
There'll be 2 speakers.
2 additional speakers, yes.
Very good. Very good, Mr. Dell. You have 5 minutes. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as mentioned, I'm a planning consultant for the owner, and I will note that given the lateness of some submissions, that the comments may be out of date with the plans that are in front of you. What has been changed for this application, which I'm here to compel you, is minor, a gentle and modest variance that respects the planned and physical character of this neighborhood. Really pertains to the changes to the deck and rear yard platform that zoning has identified in variances 1 and 2, as well as the implementation of a measured interlocking that is permeable paver front yard parking pad. So variances 1, 2, 3, and 4, I understand we have staff support. However, with the modest revisions to the deck and the rear, we are no longer in violation or in any way, shape, or form going to injure the existing trees. I note from urban forestry, of course, referencing the important natural environment policies in the official plan, that we have 2 city-owned trees, one sugar maple measuring 8 centimeters in diameter, and one 70 centimeter diameter red oak in the front, and one silver maple. It is with the greatest respect that I would put to the committee today that this application ought to be approved, subject to the conditions that no trees will be harmed in the approval or during the construction process, and that is a condition that I believe will be satisfactory to the committee once I finish my presentation. So the plans that as you're looking at them now, reflect a rear proposed deck. And just as a point of clarification for any neighbors that are listening, this is a 1.5-story building, and my client is proceeding to create a 2-story building. So it is a half-story extension. And so the footprint per se, or building over the existing footprint and envelope, is not going to impact, from my perspective, an undesirable massing or advantage on the street that the street currently doesn't already enjoy. So it's a 1.5-story building that's going to be a 2-story building with some rear deck additions. The rear deck additions were originally submitted in such a way that it posed injury or the risk of injury to the existing trees in the rear. The plans we're looking at right now actually still note that tree is to be removed, which is incorrect. I believe I submitted an updated set of plans on November 1st, and it is those plans that I am seeking a decision on today. Just for the benefit of the committee, I will continue speaking while those get pulled up. But I understand from staff, if the trees are not going to be removed as a result of the 2nd story build out and the rear deck, that we have a supportable application today, with the exception of the front parking pad. And in the official plan and the sections that staff take you through, I have to mark my agreement with policies of the official plan that talk about gentle, gradual, or sensitive development that respects the established neighborhood. And I'd like to think of the official plan as a story or a roadmap to guide applicants and neighbors on the ground on what it is that we can use to describe character of neighborhoods. They're citywide policies, and citywide policies often have a hard time capturing the nuance of individual street characters. And Beach Avenue on its own is a different street depending on what part of it you are on. South of Kingston and north of I believe what's called Victoria are different aspects. There are laneways behind portions of Beach Avenue that some homeowners do enjoy rear garages, and I could take you through a number of applications that have been approved recently that do have frame garages in the rear on Beach Avenue and on Balsam and on, excuse me, I want to make sure I get the name correct, Winthorpe, which are surrounding streets one over to the east and west that are in the same neighborhood. And the official plan takes all of these to be neighborhoods, but what's important about Beach Avenue and the neighborhood context that we're seeking to fold within is that if I were to travel north on Beach and south on Beach from my client's property, you would see adjacent, both next door for 5 properties to the north and for 3 properties to the south, similar interlocking parking pads that can be housed comfortably under existing tree canopies.
I must ask you to make your final comments, please.
No, very good, Mr. Chair. Through you, I respectfully request the committee approve this application subject to the revisions on the plans before you, with a very important condition of urban forestry. If we can, under the supervision of an arborist, dig by hand a permeable paving interlocking driveway, I think we'll be fitting very well within the existing established character of this neighborhood. Those are my comments, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to our first speaker standing by.
Hi, Mr. West. You are unmuted. You are able to speak if you can.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you fine. Please state your name.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Dean West. I live at 262 Beach Avenue. It's the abutting property directly to the south. I did not see the November 1 submission revision that the last speaker just spoke about. So my intent here now is actually to ask questions, because I didn't quite get the gist of what he was saying. In the original application, there was talk of the urban forestry response letter said that there would be a large 70-centimeter tree on city-owned property in the front of the house that would need to be removed, and a smaller sugar maple also on city property that had to be removed. So that's my main concern. From what I could infer from what he was saying was that the new plan is to continue with a parking pad, but not remove the trees. Can someone clarify that for me, that is the revision that has recently been brought forward?
Well, Mr. West, you can put questions to the applicant, but the committee can't speak for the applicant. So your question to the applicant is that. Would you repeat the question, and I'll take it to the applicant.
Sure. The 2 city-owned trees in the front of the house, the 70-centimeter oak, a smaller sugar maple, are those 2 trees now removed from urban forestry's concern about being cut down? Because that was the verbiage that urban forestry uses. They need to be destroyed. So this is a recent change.
Okay,
so that's the question.
I'll pass that question on to the speaker who's actually hearing it now. So go ahead. Yes, and any other questions for the speaker or for the applicant? I'm sorry.
Well, let me make a comment. I'm not going to object to any of the proposed variances they've applied for. I think it's a benefit to the street. As someone who lives here for 20 years, I can tell you that parking on our street is very difficult. It's hard to get a parking spot. If someone is allowed a parking pad, I would applaud that because it would make the pressure for the existing neighbors to, it would just go down if somebody had an ability to place a car somewhere. So my biggest concern was the trees in the front, because in particular, the smaller tree in the front that was going to be destroyed is right on the lot line. And I didn't understand why that tree would need to be removed. The footprint of the house isn't changing. The parking pad is quite a distance from it. And since it's right on the lot line, if the construction was going to spill over, that spillover is onto my property. So all of a sudden my quiet enjoyment is being disturbed, and that's a concern for me. So
Okay.
those are my comments, and the question still stands.
Thank you. I'll take that question to the applicant. And we're going to move on now to the next registered speaker who's standing by.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members of the committee. Hello, Dean, and hello, Nick. My name is Elon Muscat. I am the owner and, with my family, the occupants of 266 Beach Avenue. That's the property immediately north. Want to just echo Dean's concerns about, again, a late change which didn't give us the full context, but particularly around the removal of trees. And the clarity of which trees were being removed was also something that wasn't lucid in what was described. There are actually two oaks that are adjacent. One is in the back, which may not be subject to urban forestry, but almost directly abuts the house, and we understood why that might have been included in the revision to the rear deck, which it sounds like has changed. So again, we don't have a full view of what that rear deck change is looking like. But we are concerned, we were initially concerned about the removal of trees on the front, particularly ones which may have been on our lot as well. So that clarification is appreciated, that there aren't trees that are planned to be removed in the process of this application. So thank you for that clarification. As for the parking pad, I want to echo what Dean said as well, that there is a real crunch for parking in this area. If permeable materials will mean that we're not seeing the loss of drainage, then it's certainly not something that we would want to get in front of. There is one area of concern which speaks to the raising of the second floor and the raising of the level of the roof, and that is the placement of a window somewhere along the length of the house on the northern wall. There's a bedroom for my 3-year-old daughter. The window faces that wall right now. It looks on where the roof begins, and sunlight comes in there, and we are able to get sunlight on our second floor. And when that's built higher, there are two possibilities. One is that it will face a brick wall, and there will be complete obstruction of light coming into the second floor. The second issue is if a window is placed immediately adjacent to the window of a child's bedroom, I don't know whether there is provision for the distance back, whether that's been gauged in the plan. That window is visible on screen right now. So I think we're looking for an assurance that we aren't looking at a window directly into a child's bedroom window, if that is something that can be addressed in this. But we don't, as a result of the changes that were discussed just a few minutes ago, have a concern about removal of trees. We appreciate that the trees will stay in place, and again, we understand the need for a parking pad. I do want to speak to one other issue that was raised by Nick in the presentation, which is the looking at the street up and down along Beach. The backyards narrow dramatically north of the Balmy Beach Community School, where Balsam and Beach come together at the corner just south of Kingston Road. And it's because of this that backyards get smaller and smaller, and it isn't, I don't think it is reasonable to compare this stretch of beach to areas further south of Pine, where there are alleys and laneways for rear parking. It's part of the trade-off that we understand, that we have a smaller backyard as we get further north on Beach, and that needs to be kept in context when thinking about the parking. Other than that, again, concerned about the window, but appreciate the attention that's been paid to protecting the trees here, particularly the Japanese maple in the front and the large old growth oaks. We just want to make sure we understand at the end of the discussion which trees are potentially being impacted. And again, we wouldn't want there to be construction accidents which damage and remove trees and then become sort of a whoops. So we are concerned about what assurances exist there to make sure that there is adequate protection for the trees. I thank you very much, and that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Questions for the speaker panel? Okay, let's go back then to the applicant. Similar matters raised by both speakers, really, independently. Both of them sought clarity with respect to tree removal. Both had a concern regarding the parking situation because it's already tight. And then one in particular was just wondering about your plan with, if the window that you plan on your north side is planned to line up or not line up with the child's window on that side in the neighboring house. Go ahead, applicant.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate Mr. Dean and Mr. Muscat's comments. It's rare that someone hangs on so long and has such a cool level head and grasp of these matters. I know they haven't had the benefit of reviewing the revised plan, so I will reiterate for their comfort that we are recommending a very strong condition of approval of this application subject to urban forestry comments. And the rule of thumb in Toronto is if the tree's healthy, it doesn't get removed. And if there's risk of being injured or even the possibility of risk, we're trying to narrow that down. And the only assurances I can give in my experience and what we've noted on the drawings, which we're seeking approval subject to today, is that this will be done by hand and will be done under the supervision of an arborist. And I'm talking principally about the front yard parking, pad. No trees will be removed as a result of implementing the front yard parking pad, which we're going to do by hand with interlocking pavers, which are also known as permeable pavers, which are a benefit for stormwater drainage. And it will be done under the supervision of an arborist. So and to put this in another way for the neighbor's comfort, should any trees be identified as at the risk of being destroyed or injured during this process, the parking pad could not be approved. And that's the condition we're seeking today from committee. I appreciate the anecdotal context that the neighbors were able to give with respect to the difficulty of parking on the stretch of beach, which is why we're seeking this approval today. And with respect to the window, I'm sorry, I cannot note exactly the alignment of where it would be facing. I could perhaps suggest to my clients that there could be discussions between neighbors, among neighbors, about possibly frosting or screening that window, but I must also maintain that there are a variety of narrowness between the side yards of lots on the street, and there may be others that have simply never noticed the views of windows and the need for natural light in bedrooms. So there may be a code issue there with respect to requiring a window, but I can't confirm if it lines up or not with your child's window. Mr. Muscat, I apologize for that.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel, any questions of the applicant? Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple. So I'm assuming that your revised plan in terms of protecting the trees has not been vetted by urban forestry, because I know the trees in the front are concerned, but also that tree in the back, and it looks like you've notched the deck out to try to accommodate that.
Correct.
I don't know if putting the second story addition on the existing footprint, I know it's going on the existing, if that's going to harm the tree or injure it in any way. So I don't know. You haven't discussed that with urban forestry?
No, in the interest of speed, we've revised the application or accepting a condition that should that be the case, we would have to go back to the drawing board. I don't believe the construction techniques related to adding the half-story addition were what were really posing a threat to the existing trees. I believe it was the deck and the parking pad and under the root system of the one private and two public trees that was posing the greatest threat.
Okay, and then have you seen the memo from the planning department about the front yard parking pad does not meet the purpose and intent of the official plan, because I guess it was amended in 2020 regarding policy that minimizes driveways and curb cuts across public sidewalk.
Yes.
Limit surface. So can you speak to that issue?
I'd be happy to.
I mean,
Certainly.
I know you parking pads along that side. But I'm assuming that those may have, been implemented prior to, the OP amendment or any zoning bylaw that's in place that doesn't permit for them. So if you could speak to that, and while you're talking about that, also speak to whether or not another curb cut's going to eliminate parking on the street. I think parking's on the other side, but I'm not sure.
No, through you, Mr. Chair, I really appreciate the comments, and I'm happy to flex my policy context. For the benefit of the members' questions, it is important to note that I have a number of approvals in recent memory, that is after 2020, where we have parking pads in the front yard on elsewhere on elsewhere on Beach. So 334 Beach, there was a 2-story stucco dwelling with a rear addition that had an interlocking brick driveway. And so that's another minor variance application in 2021, April 28th of 2021, these plans were approved. And also within the context of OPA 320, we do have language that supports gentle and modest growth, provided that, and I'll put to you that I think the main intent of these policies are to preserve landscaping and open space. And I believe front parking pads that take away from that are ones that would harm and remove landscape coverage and trees that are currently enjoyed by the surrounding neighborhood. So in the context of the street, pared down from the citywide intent of the OPA 320, I believe that parking pads that don't remove the open space features like trees are something that can be reasonably varied. And that's why I think in this case it is a reasonable relief to request, because it is a sensitive and gradual fit for the existing physical character of the neighborhood. And that's right out of the OPA policy that staff are referencing. Both policy 4.1.5 for new development and the criteria of evaluating the immediate context and prevailing landscape patterns of open space, that would be in keeping with another parking pad, because we have several adjacent to and along the street, some of which have been approved by post 2020. And I also have plans on streets that abut.
Okay, you've made your
Go
point.
ahead, if you think that's enough.
You made your point on that.
And last point to address is parking. There is a fire hydrant out front, and so parking would not be harmed by the fact that 3 meters is required in front of that fire hydrant anyways. So you wouldn't be able to park in front of this property even if you wanted to, with or without a parking pad.
Thank you very much. Okay. At this time, I think, panel, we're probably ready to take this application into committee. So let's do that. We'll take the application now into committee for a motion or for discussion. Mr. Bide, go ahead.
Isaac, here you're muted.
Gotta get this right. I think the applicant has certainly made a very strong case. In general, when I see responses from planning staff with recommendations and recommendations for refusal, I'm always concerned and a flag goes up. In this particular case, I note that there are parking pads right down the street, including on both, in front of both the applicant's neighbors' homes. There are parking pads. So this is one case in which I can see the necessity for a parking pad to be placed, and the applicant has indicated the care with which a parking pad would be installed. So it's not an objection that I would want to follow. So I'd be quite happy to move a motion for approval if my colleagues do not have any objections.
Thank you. Other comment? Ms. Valentini?
Unfortunately, I don't think I could support the parking pad, given in light of the comment from the planning department about the amendment to the official plan and that it doesn't comply with that. I also have concerns about the parking pad generally and the impact it could have on the existing trees, particularly the city, the larger city tree and the larger tree and the city tree. And I wish these changes changes could have been made so that urban forestry could have provided us with some sort of guidance as to whether or not this is a feasible solution to the problem. And the same with the tree at the back. So unfortunately, because of the urban forestry's request that we refuse the application, I can't support it. I think preserving the trees are an important thing.
Thank you. Other comment? Ms. Hayes? Ms. Hayes?
With respect to the tree in the rear, I would accept the submissions from the applicant with respect to the amendments they've made. I too, however, feel that the official plan amendment that was done in September 2020 could be seen as quite intentional with respect to trying to limit or eliminate curb cuts, whether or not there's a fire hydrant there or not. It doesn't say that exception. And also the trees potentially in the front. So having said that, I could only support the application insofar as all the variances with the exception of the front yard parking path.
So if you would support it except for that variance? Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's what I mean.
Yeah, okay.
I would not approve variance number 5.
Yes, okay. Okay, Mr. Chang.
I agree with Ms. Hayes that item 1 to 4 are acceptable, but number 5 is not mine. It's very hard to justify it as mine, even though I just can't find a reason to create an exemption to go against the staff report and the overall variance action. So only 1 to 4 is.
Thank you very much. And for my part, I took notice also of the staff report from parking and permits and parking and enforcement, and I would like to see, I would want to see minor variance 5 removed if we were to go ahead and look at an approval otherwise. So I'd probably see approval overall, but denial of number 5 minor variance. Is anyone ready for a minor or for a motion? Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
So I'll try. I would move approval of the application with the amended plans, subject to, with the exception of variance number 5, subject to forestry condition requiring the permit application to urban forestry, so that the submissions of the applicant with respect to how they feel the amendment will protect the tree in the rear, that urban forestry will have the final say with respect to that.
Thank you. Is there a second on that motion?
Can I just ask a question of clarification?
Go ahead.
So in terms of the urban forestry piece, because I think I might be able to agree with this motion, but what do you mean in terms of protect the tree? Just get a permit to injure, or?
Well, yeah, because they would still have, my understanding, and staff could correct me if I'm wrong, I think if we can require as a condition, they have to put in an application to, remove or injure the tree, or it has to be reviewed by urban forestry. Then if an urban forestry is under no obligation to issue a permit under those circumstances, so my sense is it would still cover off allow urban forestry to still have a review of it, although they haven't been able to do so, which we would have preferred prior to the amendment to the rear that the applicant has spoken of today. That's how I'm kind of thinking about it.
So then they would not get the permit to injure, then therefore they can't build a
Yes.
second story addition. Is that correct? Could staff just confirm that's how it works?
My understanding is that forestry would issue a permit to injure a tree, which may involve tree root pruning or something like that, as well as fencing. So it's a permit to injure or remove. So it's still forestry reviews an application.
So if we grant the variance, then they are not obliged to issue a permit to injure, correct? They have or do they do that if we approve the variance, do they automatically issue the permit to injure? No, that's not the case.
I'm just reviewing the most recent forestry comments from dated October 18th, where they said, should committee approve the application, in knowledge that tree removal injury will be required, urban forestry will issue a tree removal injury permit subject to the authority under the tree bylaw. And I think what the discussion has been, the focus is on the private tree in the back. If the minor variance 5 is removed or refused, then the city trees would stay the way they are.
That sounds right.
But if the whole application gets approved, then that's why I was asking, because I did remember reading that somewhere, but you're right, it's in this memo, that if this second story addition gets approved as well at the rear, that they would automatically, they would issue the tree removal or injury permit. Is that correct then?
That's how I'm reading this memo.
Okay.
So the sort of letting them have a second review of it and be able to veto it wouldn't exist with a condition then?
They may allow for the tree to be removed or may not. It's up to forestry through the permit.
So it still could be a may not. They have an opportunity, they decide whether or not they'll issue that permit.
Right, but the way that, the paragraph is at the bottom of the first page of their memo. They're kind of.
But in terms of the standard conditions, it's subject to an application, so.
Correct.
And the forestry has the opportunity to say no to an application, correct? Am I correct, Sylvia?
They have that ability, but I think this more alludes to that they would then issue the tree removal injury permit. They're going to be, it seems to me they're going to issue something.
All right, I would still want the forestry condition, and I would leave it to them to make that determination in reviewing the amendment proposed by the applicant, but I would not support variance number 5.
Very good. Now, thank you. Do you want to repeat your motion at this stage then? Because we've had a long discussion on that. So do you mind outlining your motion?
So my motion would be to approve variances 1 to 4, refuse variance number 5, subject to review and application to urban forestry with respect to the private tree at the rear.
Perfect. Okay. Is there a second to that motion? It is seconded. Mr. Chang. Moved and seconded to approve the amended application. All those in favor, show of hands, please. And that motion does receive a unanimous vote. It's carried, and the application is so approved. Thank you. And that takes us on to number 25, 133 CADORNA. We've got the applicant's materials. There's a cover letter from the agent, 27 October. There are comparable statistics from the agent, 27 October. And one form letter in support from 135 CADORNA. Sounds like it would be next door. So with that, we'll have the agent join us. And the agent can join us now simply by stating your name.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Nadeem Irfan, and I architects 10 Milner Business Court, Suite 710, Toronto, Ontario, M1B3C6.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's check with panel and see how we'll go ahead here. Panel, would you like a presentation on this one? No. Do you have any questions for Mr. Irfan directly? Hearing none. Is anyone ready to move forward with a motion? Ms. Hayes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. Having reviewed the materials on file, I believe that cumulatively what's being requested is minor in nature. I think the height, the FSI, the lot coverage, they're incremental changes. I don't think the second-story balcony size is much larger than what's permitted, and I don't have a concern with respect to the driveway width. And my colleagues have no further comments. I would move to approve the application, and I don't believe there are any conditions.
Thank you. Second to that motion, there is Ms. Valentini. So moved and seconded to approve the application. All those in favor? Unanimous vote carries the motion. The application is approved. Thank you. And we move to number 2615 Plater. And on 15 Plater, we have the applicant's submission and a staff report from Community Planning. Let's go to the agent now and have the agent join us. Agent, please state your name as you join the meeting.
Hi, my name is Joe Dome, 1101 Steeles Avenue West, agent for the owner.
Thank you very much. On this one, panel, presentation required? No. Questions for the agent?
I have a question, just a quick one in terms of the condition requested by the planning department in terms of the privacy screening on the decks or platforms on both the second and third story. Are there any issues with that, installing them along the south edge?
No, the owner will gladly comply with these recommendations.
I have a question for you about the FSI. And let me ask you, what is the FSI, existing FSI?
So the existing FSI is 0.84, so this is an existing condition.
That's an existing condition. Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
And how about the soft landscaping?
That is an existing condition as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. On the topic then, is there anything you can do at this opportunity to improve that soft landscaping?
That is, I don't have any information about improving the soft landscaping, but the stairs in the back are not going to be reducing it any further. As far as improving, I can get word from the owner whether he's willing to make some adjustment there.
When you say you can get word, what time frame
Yeah,
are you
I
talking
can
about?
contact him now if you feel that it's necessary to get an answer immediately for improving the soft yard landscaping.
Oh, well, my question of you, or if you have to go to the owner, but my question is there anything that we can do to improve that soft landscaping percentage? Because we do like to see properties, each one contributing and doing its share of managing stormwater runoff. So I'm wondering why you're asking for that variance, and if there's, if you've looked at all the options to improve it. So
Just for
I-
me to clarify, so you're seeking to put on just the decks, is that right? You're not changing the whole.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah. It's really just for the second and third story decks.
I just wanted to make sure I understood it correctly, because that's what I understood. It was just for the deck. So you're not proposing to change any of the landscaping on the ground floor, or doing any additions or anything like that. Just the decks.
That's right. There is a one-story rear addition that's just going to be rebuilt, but there's no there's no reduction in soft landscaping or increase in FSI.
So just
Understood.
I guess an observation then, just looking at the plans. So the configuration of the lot and on the curve of the road and the placement of the house and the garage, there limited opportunity for landscaping regardless of the circumstances. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions, panel, for the agent? No? In that case, is anyone ready to move forward with a motion? Ms. Valentini, go ahead, please.
Yep, I'm ready to move forward. I'd like to bring forward a motion for approval of the application. Yes, I do admit that landscaping, while it appears low, it is an existing condition. And so, and I think that in terms of the balconies with the proposed screening that's in the planning report, I think that will alleviate any concerns about overlook onto the neighbor to the south. So the motion is for approval, subject to the conditions set out in the planning department memo.
Thank you. It is seconded by Ms. Hayes. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands. Motion carried, unanimous vote. Application is so approved. And we move on to number 27, 131 Brock Ave. And on 131 Brock, we'll bring in the agent in a moment. The materials before us are simply those submitted by the applicant in his submission. So let's have the agent join us. And
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Adam Brander. My address is 49 Bolton Avenue in Toronto, and I'm the agent and the architect for the proposal at 131 Brock Avenue.
Good afternoon to you. Okay. Panel, any questions for this agent? Hearing none. Is anyone ready to move with a motion, please? Mr. Chang, go ahead.
I will try it this time. I have reviewed the documents. It's a very straightforward and simple application. There's no exterior changes, no parking deficiencies. There's only about 10% changes of the secondary sewer allowance. And based on those information, I would like to support this application.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second, Mr. Byatt. Mr. Byatt seconds. Okay. So, moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor, show of hands. Motion carried. Application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. On application number 28, 217 Howard Park, we're looking at the submission by the applicant, those materials, 4 photographs of the property, a 2020 Committee of Adjustment decision, and we have 1 piece of correspondence in opposition from 219 Howard. Let's bring now the agent on board, and agent, just state your name, please, as you join us.
Pablo, if you can refrain from unmuting yourself, I will unmute you now.
Pablo Turco, 10 Plastics Avenue, agent for this property.
Thank you very much. Just stand by, Pablo, for a moment. Moderator, do we have the speaker in oppositions?
Have Anne Minelli on the line.
Okay, very good. Okay, Pablo, you have you'll have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Please go ahead now and do so.
This application is the result of revision to the building permit issued back in 2020, and the proposed revisions were to alter the addition to story it, to make to modify a front porch, build rear balconies, enclose a front second floor balcony, and modify dormers on the third floor of this house. So in front of you there's 4 variances. The required yard setback is smaller than required because of the existing balcony edge was not at the line of the front yard setback, and being enclosed it's becoming a front yard setback, so it's grandfathering pre-existing condition. The building height exceeding the maximum is the technical variance, because it's taken from the average grade at the back of the property, and with the slope of the natural grade it's actually exceeding, whereas in fact it doesn't go the same for variance number 3. The height of the exterior main walls are exceeding the permitted maximum, again taken from different datum at the back, technical variance as well. And the last one is the gross floor area exceeding permitted as a result of increasing the living area by about 50 meters third floor. In my opinion, and after reading the position letter, after consulting with the community planner, who has no objections and they're satisfied with the proposal, I think development of the area passing all 4 tests with flying colors, and it's in character with the established physical character of the other houses in this of this neighborhood. So respectfully asking the committee to grant the approval of those variances. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll now ask the speaker standing by to join us. Simply state your name.
Urban forestry and green. There is not one scrap of green in this yard.
Excuse me?
and-
Pardon me.
Yes.
I think we missed your initial comments. If you start again, please. First of all, if you could give us your name, and then you have 5 minutes to address the committee.
My name is Anne Manili. Can you hear me?
Very clearly. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm going to make a brief comment about the complete absence of any green in the front or the backyard. We have some issues with drainage. The addition will block off all of the sunlight to our backyard and our back deck. I'm now going to stop and pass on to my husband, Vidila Benelis, who is an architect and will be able to deal with the nuances of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. I think I'm trying to My husband's at the office. I don't know where he is. Can you allow him to speak, please? His name is Vidila Benelis.
Oh, my apologies.
Okay, we're going to unmute him now.
Hello, thanks for your time. Again, my name is Vidila Benelis. I'm a senior partner at Zeidler Architecture in Toronto and resident at 219 Howard Park. Not a lot of nuance on this application. It's a very big addition that adds density of 50% to the allowable on the site. It's already a very large building. And honestly, there is very little landscaping of any sort on the site. I just referenced an earlier application where you discussed the desire to have building drainage addressed on each site, and as an architect of large buildings all over the city, that is a key factor that we look at. And this is somewhat unconscionable. It's essentially a cement or asphalted site. The two-step application process here to get density at one point and now go back and ask for more once they started construction. I believe they were stopped in their tracks. I did not complain. I don't know who did, because I understood they were doing what was on the plans. And the expansion of the density for me is just sets a precedent for the neighborhood of 50% over the allowable density. If every neighbor did that, we would have a completely different feel and look to the environment. So those are my main objections. I sent along a package of marked up documents showing the extent of additional area and extent of changes. Not necessarily objecting to the look and feel of the design. It is, I believe, in keeping with the neighborhood. I just simply object to the amount of density that we're trying to put into this building. So that's the end of my remarks. I hope you've had a chance to look at the drawings we submitted.
Well, do you want us to bring those up now so that you can take us through them?
Happy to do that.
Okay, let's put them up.
So this is the original letter of objection to the previous application. I don't think we need to focus on those. If we can move along to further down the letter, this is, so yeah, if you could focus in on the first of the plans here, that'd be great. Oh, this is actually still the original letter. I'm sorry, please, a bit further down. Yeah, these heavily red marked ones. Yeah, the site plan there is perfect. Honestly, just pointing out some of the dimensional issues. I believe there are some area calculation mistakes on those, but fairly minor. The big issue is the 87% I can't read it right now. 87.5% of FSI over the 60 allowed. If you could go to the next page, I'll just run through these very quickly. The third floor has been expanded quite substantially with an additional dormer expansion towards the west, and a full build out of the third floor. Again, increasing the general effect on top of our property, on top of increasing the density. You can go to the next page, please. Just really marking up the extent of changes, which came in after an already approved approved application. The build out of the balcony at the front, we don't have much of an objection to that, so no problem with that. Just pointing out the size and scale of how much has been added. Next page. Again, predominantly the big addition is to the south. It's a severely sloping site, quite severely sloping site. At the back of the property, this is now a 4-story building. It is essentially a parking lot in the back with a garage and nothing else, no landscape whatsoever. Next, and again, the dormers have increased in size quite a lot. Continuing. Again, just showing the extent of changes and the additional height on the dormer, now taking it up entirely to the peak of the building. And the next page. And again, just these are all the elevations. They're simply marked up again, mostly showing the extent of the dormer extension to the west side of the building, and then the third floor extension towards the south, and the balcony addition on that level. And finally, I believe it's just a section markup. Yeah, again, showing the same thing. So really, that's the main objection on our part. It just seems to be a relatively cynical attempt to, on top of already having been granted quite a big extension, to then add even more density. Not sure why it's a two-step process. So, thank you for your time.
The question of the speaker.
Question, go ahead.
If I might. Yeah, so these drawings that you provided that are marked up, are they the drawings that were on the original application? So you've used the original application that was approved the last time to put a set on that, and then marked them up and added what's changing? Is that what you've done?
That's exactly what I've done. This is the original set of documents. Yeah.
Okay, so we know from these documents then, it gives us an idea of what extra stuff's being added from what what was approved the last time.
Correct.
Yeah, thank you.
So could you describe the overall impact of, you have touched on this in a number of ways, but, you know, to sort of recap it, the impact then of this application over and above what was done first time, how does it impact your property?
Well, predominantly, I would say the impact is the third floor addition, in both the dormer that projects towards the west. It's already a very narrow condition between our houses. We have quite a dark alley condition, roughly, can't remember, it varies between about 2 meters to 1.5 meters, something like that. So, you know, it's projecting that up even higher, and then projecting a third floor addition all the way to the back of the house will cut off a lot of light to our living room. We did not have an objection in general to the dimension of the addition previously. We asked for some minor revisions in our previous to kind of aesthetically assist it, but we understand that there is a reason for expanding the property. So we're really just concerned that now it's going to be a 4-story building. It does have a peaked roof, but in general, the general impact of the mass is going to project quite far back into the property and kind of, I wouldn't say overwhelm, but will be very significant as perceived from the backyard of our property.
So your feeling about the application then is you would like to see it altered or rejected?
Well, I would like to see the scale of it cut back to where it was. I don't have a real problem with some of the dormer changes. As I say, I think the aesthetics have been improved, in fact, from the previous application. But I would certainly like to see the third floor cut back and retain the 2-floor addition on the rear of the property as it was previously approved.
Thank you very much. Further questions, panel, of this speaker? Okay then, let's go back to the applicant. And do we have any other speakers standing by, Mr. Moderator? No. Okay, so we'll go back to the applicant. Applicant concern from your next door neighbor is the fact that now the third floor will extend further back, and that that does create issues associated with does it create massing issues by going the full distance back. Also concerned about the actual the ground level treatment of the open spaces. Doesn't appear to be any green space provided for. Could you address those issues, please?
Yes, am I unmuted now?
You're unmuted now. You're a little bit faint.
Yep, I'll try to speak into microphone. Thank you, Mr. Benelis. The owner, after reading your letter, was, justifiably upset, especially, accusation, two-step approach and cynical approach to planning, whereas in fact we consulted with community planning. They are satisfied with this proposal. They think it's in character with the neighborhood, and even Mr. Benelli said himself in a statement that he thinks it's in keeping with established physical character of the neighborhood. As to the landscaping, it's not a variance per se in this application, and the building footprint has not changed even with this revision. So I don't think there is any adverse effect on drainage or landscaping or anything outside of the building. As for the massing of the building, if you can have a look at the rear elevation, the expansion of the third floor is done in a way that the living area there is within the mansard and within the attic space. Everything is sloped respectfully away from 19 Howard Park Avenue. The dormers are actually facing the other side in order not to block any view or to have any visual adverse effect on this property. So I respectfully disagree with their concern of this addition, modest addition, having an adverse effect on their property or the neighborhood. It was very surprising to see. I hope it's not Mr. Benellis' opinion is not the opinion of the entire site architecture firm. His own personal opinion, because there was no good reason to put that much weight on a letter from a neighbor. And again, the owner, after seeing this, was very emotional. I had to calm him down. The entire change was driven by just trying to improve the living conditions of the tenant upstairs. There is no evil intent of two-way approach to the planning or committee adjustment process. So anyway, it was taken very emotionally. But all in said, the gross floor area increase is still within the range, and the building has all the physical characteristics of the neighborhood. Has like even Mr. Benelli said, they actually improved the aesthetics now. So it's desirable in my opinion, and I don't think the application needs to be rejected or even modified. So respectfully, again, asking to grant the approval. Thank you.
Panel members, questions for? Go ahead, Mr. Chang.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can the city staff bring up the agenda? There's a site picture at the back of the building.
Pardon me, you'd like the site plan?
No, it's actually a photo of the the rear side of the
Photo of the rear, okay.
this one, right? So just a quick question to the applicant. So you are basically at the back, you're extending exactly where the red brick is, and then another balcony at the back. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Can I just,
Then-
sorry, I don't
then-
mean to interrupt, but this isn't the new, with the new addition that was approved previously. Is this just the original house?
That's still the original house.
So we don't have a
the
picture of what it looks like with the
addition,
two-story addition, because it's wider, as I understood it.
Yeah, the addition hasn't been built yet. What you see on the photo, that's existing house as it is right now.
At the construction of the prior variance, correct? Just so I understand too, because that's how I remembered it.
Before the construction of the original building permit. Which was issued last year.
And then, sorry, can you bring, can the city staff bring the drawing A-8 on the screen, please? So it's on the plans,
Sorry, Aaron, may you repeat that?
yes, on drawing A8, A-8. I wish we can open both at the same time to compare. But, I believe this is the latest design combining your current application. So I have two screen
Okay. Any further questions?
Yeah, this one is getting a sense of the expansion is quite significant.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Other questions for the applicant panel?
Do you have any comparables with other FSIs in the neighborhood? In terms of, because I think this is becoming quite large in terms of the FSI. And I remember this from the prior hearing, this one. So I do have concerns about adding an additional third floor and larger dormers onto this proposal. I think the last time there was an issue, or the neighbor raised the fact that, you know, the lots do kind of narrow at the back they get narrower at the back. So there's pinching of that area between the houses. So while the 2-story was something that got approved, and I remember that hearing, the 3-story plus all those additional large dormers, I think is getting to be quite large. So do you have any comparable FSIs in the area that show that this is in keeping with, from the photos, it doesn't look like it's going to be of the adjacent neighbors, but
Yeah, okay.
do you have any comparables to support your application?
I don't have any addresses, but there's many 2.5-story buildings with full 3rd story built out in the area.
Okay, well, at this point, I think it's time. Yeah, okay, so there are no comparables available right now. Let's take the application into committee at this time for discussion. And so we'd consider it to be in committee now. And Ms. Valentini, go ahead, please.
I have concerns about this application. I do remember this from the prior hearing, the prior decision. And I think this is pushing the envelope too far. I have concerns with the coverage and just the bulky mass of adding the 3rd floor onto the building. I won't be supporting this application. We don't have anything to show that there are other houses in the vicinity there that are of the same size. So unfortunately, I can't support the application.
Thank you very much. Other comment? Mr. Byatt.
I'd just like to concur with Ms. Valentini. When one looks at the site plan, it is a lot that pinches up at the back, and there's a massing at the back that I think for the neighborhood. I know that the applicant has said he doesn't have any addresses, but certainly this one looks a tremendous massing in the rear.
Yes.
I'm not comfortable supporting it either.
Neither am I. Neither am I, having heard what I've heard. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
I would just agree with the comments of my colleagues. I think, whether or not this would be appropriate on a different lot, the lot configuration, the characteristics, I believe, results in a structure that not only is very large on paper, but would, the massing, I believe, overwhelms the site.
Thank you. Mr. Cheng, do you care to speak on this issue?
Not much to add, to
Yeah,
be honest.
no,
The
you
first thing
already-
I noticed was the back expansion. It was extremely significant, and particularly the lot size. I understand that it is angular, kind of parallel, merging to the same center line with the neighbor, and that creates an even worse massing to the neighbor. I just don't think this is appropriate.
Looking to panel then for a motion with respect to this application. Ms. Valentini.
I'd like to bring a motion forward for refusal of the application. In my view, it does not meet the 4 tests for the reasons I had stated.
Thank you very much. Second to that motion, there is Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to refuse. Those in favor of the motion, show of hands, please. Motion is carried, unanimous vote. The application is thereby refused. Thank you. Panel moves on to number 29. (49A) Helena. On 49A Helena, we have applicant's materials, cover letter from agent, arborist report from July, tree protection plan from July, correspondence in support from these addresses: 51 Helena, 52 Alsina, 43, 44, 48, 23, and 21 Helena. And there's a form letter in support signed by owners and occupants of 49 Helena. So let us bring the agent into the meeting. Please state your name, agent, as you join us.
Hello, my name is Deborah Mesher. I'm the designer and agent for this proposal, and I live at 198 Melita Avenue in Toronto.
Thank you very much. Okay, panel. Presentation requested or questions for the applicant? If not, Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Many of the examples that were provided in your materials are all of detached homes. I do recognize that you've given us an overhead picture of the neighbor, and that their third story appears to be deeper than what you're proposing here, and a streetscape photo. But from a wall height perspective on a semi, how does this compare to the neighbor's wall height or other semis?
Well, the wall height of the adjacent, let's see, the west side, that's a detached house that has quite a high third story, and that is detached, and that's actually higher. It's definitely over 10.88 meters, which we're asking for. And their attached neighbor, their front dormer is tiny, and so their roof slope is such that the wall height calculation is at 9.5 thereabouts. But as you mentioned, their extension actually has a flat roof at the back and leads all the way back. So it's really the issue that we're talking about is really just the peak of the roof to just maintain that roof slope. It's not overall. If you go to the elevations, you're just pulling up. Yeah, continue. Yeah, that one. So really, we're talking about just that it's measured to that very, very peak of that roof line, but really the majority is below, is at or below 10 meters.
Thank you.
Very good. Question, Ms. Valentini? Go ahead.
Sorry, we've been at this for a while, so I apologize if you just answered this question, but how is that going to, it's going to be similar to the attached neighbor? Is that what you just said, or?
Yes, I'm just talking about the measurement that we're looking for at 10.88 meters is really to the very, very peak of the underside of the soffit of the roof, whereas the majority of the addition is actually below 10 meters, very similar to the attached neighbor. It's a matter of where they're measuring to for the sidewall.
But in terms of continuity, in terms of the two semis and how they're going to look together, it would have been nice to see the neighbor in your elevations, the attached neighbor, and how that's going to compare.
Sure thing.
It's
Yes,
not going to tower over the attached neighbor. It's going to look similar to.
That's right.
Not
We're gonna
exactly.
match it. Yeah, I mean, detail-wise, we're going to try and match the roof slopes anyhow.
Okay. But it'll be slightly different in height because it's
Mr. Byatt.
architecturally slightly different. Is that right?
Yeah, because the front dormer has a steeper pitch than the existing neighbor's front dormer. That's why.
Another question from Mr. Byatt. Go ahead.
Just a quick question. Would I be correct in assuming that the immediate neighbor is supportive of the application?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, if there are no further questions, is Ms. Valentini?
Are you looking for a motion? 'Cause
I'm looking
happy
for a motion
to
now.
move on
Yeah,
this one.
sure.
Okay. I'm satisfied. One of the concerns sometimes I have is when one neighbor is doing a third floor addition and especially in a semi, and the other one, it doesn't match. And so I'm satisfied that in terms of the massing, it will be compatible. And as Mr. Bayat has noted, the attached neighbor is actually fine with it. So I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval of the application. I think the variances in this case are in keeping with the adjacent neighbors and the neighborhood, and there are no conditions for this.
Thank you so much. There is a second, Mr. Bayat. Moved and seconded to approve. Those in favor? Show of hands. Motion carried. Unanimous vote, and the application is approved. So thank you. Panel, at this point, we've been at it for a couple of hours and a half now since our last break. Let's take a 10-minute recess and resume at 25 minutes to 7. See you in 10 minutes. Thank you. And we are ready to resume. We are ready to resume now. We'll be resuming and moving forward from item number 30, 60 FOLLIS Ave. And here we're dealing with the applicant's materials, covering letter from June. We have correspondence from community planning and 3 form letters in support, 766, 892 Palmerston, and 55 Yarmouth. And opposition correspondence from 62 FOLLIS, which would be next door, from 766, 768 Palmerston, received October 29. And we'll now ask the agent to join us, please. State your name.
Good evening. My name is Michelle Charco, and I'm the planner at BOULEVARD Group.
Good evening, Michelle. You have 5 minutes to present your application to the panel. Go ahead, please.
Great, thank you. So I'm just going to give a brief summary and go through each of the variances. So the proposal is for a rear 2-story addition and a partial 3rd-story addition. I'd like to point out that the proposal meets the maximum permitted height of 10 meters, and we also meet the side yard setback requirements of 0.45. So going through each of the variances now, we have variances for both front and rear main wall height and also side wall height. With respect to the front and rear main wall height, I'm sure the committee is probably aware by now that recently the OLT released a decision which has actually amended the requirement for flat roof buildings. And in that decision, it specifically states that any front or rear main wall located above a height of 7.2 or 25 meters or more, whichever is the greater, shall be set back 1.4 meters from the building face for the front and rear main walls. If we go to the figures that we've provided for this partial 3rd-story addition, we've actually provided for a 1.8 meter setback from the front and 2.3 meter setback. So the only difference in this instance is that we're not filling in those triangular portions to create a sloped roof. As such, depending on if this application were to be submitted again today, this variance likely wouldn't apply. With respect to the side wall height variance, we're proposing for a 3rd-story addition, and I'm sure the committee is well aware now that most dwellings with a 3rd story would require a side wall height variance. We submitted a figures package, and in that figures package, it does identify some of the other main wall height variances that have been approved in the area, and there are some heights that have been approved upwards of 10 meters. So the proposal is well in keeping within this. With respect to the rear yard setback variance, the proposed dwelling today is already deficient, and this is because it is a shallow lot. The lot has a length of approximately 16 meters. The existing building itself is quite shallow as well. With the proposed addition, the building would have an overall length of 11.24. This is substantially lower than the maximum permission of 17 meters. And as a result of the location of the addition, we're reducing the rear yard setback from the existing of 6.08 to 518. This is only a reduction of 3 feet or 0.9 meters. With respect to the FSI, again, this is a small shallow lot, and the number is the number, so to speak. We've done an analysis of approved FSIs in the area. This is also included within our package, and as can be seen, the proposal is well within the range of what has been approved. And I'd like to point out that those FSIs have been approved on much larger lots as well. With respect to the final variance for front yard, for the cladding, this only relates to the front yard setback, and this is because the building is located right at the 0 meter lot line. So that cladding is going to project approximately 5 centimeters. With respect to planning staff, we received no comments. Planning staff have no objection. And we did receive some comments from the neighbors. And what I can say with respect to those comments is that the proposal does not have any side yard setback variances. The proposal has been designed in a way to try to mitigate any sort of concerns and ultimately result in what I would say are very minor variances. So Right now, the west wall of the existing building is going to stay at the 0 meter lot line. It is constructed right on the lot line. It is an older building. And the proposed addition portions are all going to be compliant with the required setback of 0.45, as no windows are being proposed. I'd also like to point out to the committee that some of the side wall windows that currently exist today are actually going to be removed. This includes a window on the west wall for a stairwell, and it also includes 2 existing bay windows on the east side. These will be removed as well. In addition, the partial 3rd story addition has a length of approximately only 7 meters, and it's not for the full length of the building. With regarding to some of the other concerns, the neighbor's dwelling at 62 Follis is set back approximately 0.9 to 1 meter, which is compliant with the requirement of the bylaw, because that dwelling does have windows. But with respect to what we are providing at 0.5, this would provide for adequate separation distance between the dwellings as stipulated by the bylaw.
I'll ask you to make your concluding comments now, please.
That was it. I was done.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll go to the registered speakers. And
Nuno Paulino, you are unmuted. You are able to speak.
you can join us now by stating your name, please.
Hi, Nuno. If you can unmute your microphone through your end or turn up your microphone volume so we are able to hear you. We cannot hear you at this moment. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can try giving them a call in the meanwhile and move on to the next speaker.
Let's do that.
The next speaker will be Anne-Marie Donald.
Okay.
Anne-Marie, you are unmuted. You are able to speak. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. This is Anne-Marie McDonald. I own, with my wife, Elisa Palmer, 760.
Oh, sorry. So sorry.
Which is next door to 660 Follis. And I'm going to read to you a letter that Elisa and I and our neighbor at 768, Sean Freeman, wrote to the Committee of Adjustment. We are writing to oppose requested zoning variances listed as items 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the public hearing notice. We believe that these requests are not minor and do not meet the tests the committee members must use when deciding whether or not to approve an application. We would also like to show support for the neighbor at 62 Follis Avenue, that's Nuno Paulino, whose home will be most impacted by the proposed third floor and rear two-story additions. It is clear that this lot was not part of the original subdivision of the land as shown in the letter submitted from 62 Follis Avenue. The lot is smaller, with the house being pushed to the west property line, and therefore the proposed changes will affect both the quality of life lived there and the value of the property at 62 Follis Avenue. Perhaps the new owners of 60 Follis Avenue should consider making more modest alterations to the home to lessen its impact on the neighbors. Since the first test is that the variances requested are minor, we find it difficult to see how the committee can approve this application as it stands. The application's height will impact our homes at 766 and 768 Palmerston as well. It will be noticed most in the winter with diminished light finding its way to our southwest facing windows as it is blocked by the new third floor of 60 Follis Avenue. 60 Follis Avenue's existing roof at the second floor level has a very low slope, allowing a lot of sun presently to pass over the house. We would like the committee members to know that we generally support applications that we were notified about. However, in this case, the impact seems too great on 62 Follis Avenue to offer our support. We trust the committee will take the time to understand this very real impact and decide not to support the application. Kindly note that Anne-Marie McDonald, that's me, and my wife Elisa Palmer's tenant at 766 Palmerston Avenue, Madame Marine Villemain, has notified the owners of 60 Follis Avenue that she wishes to rescind the form letter of support she signed
for their application because her decision to sign it was based on a misunderstanding. I and my wife, Elisa Palmer, resided at 766 Palmerston from 1999 to 2014 and plan to return when our out-of-province posting concludes in the next 3 years. Thus, although we currently reside elsewhere, we're personally invested in the well-being of the neighborhood. And that is a letter from Sean Freeman at 768, me and my wife, Elisa Palmer, at 766. And I'll move on now. My second point is with regard to my tenant, Madame Villemins, rescinding of her letter of support. I'd like to read to you an email she sent to the owners of 60 Follis, on which she copied me. Hi, Keith. As discussed earlier, there has been a misunderstanding about the purpose of this letter. I understood that this letter was only about the possible nuisance that the work made to your house could cause to the neighborhood once the work has started, and not an endorsement of the construction itself. Can you please confirm you have asked for the withdrawal of the letter I signed? Thank you, my best, Marion Villemain. Okay, so that's the letter, to which the owners at 60 Follis replied their consultant had written to the city as to this matter and learned it is not possible to rescind a letter of support, which is why I, Anne-Marie, I have forwarded the correspondence today to Tiffany Lee in the event that my tenant's message may not have made its way to the committee today. So number 3 point, with regard to the remaining two form letters of support from 892 Palmerston and 50 Yarmouth Road, it's perhaps noteworthy that both are quite a distance from 60 Follis Avenue. Sean's house and mine are, as you know, adjacent to 60 Follis at 766 and 768 Palmerston, respectively. One of those letters is from 892 Palmerston, which is quite a ways north. The other is from Yarmouth Road, which is many blocks west and a couple of blocks north of 62 Follis. And so finally, Seaton Village, as is our official name, is the quintessential, that's the official name of our neighborhood, is the quintessentially neighborly neighborhood. People know and help one another and enjoy one another as neighbors. This describes the rapport I have had with Nuno Polino at 62 Follis since 1999, when I and my family moved into the neighborhood. And it's in the spirit of neighborliness that I, my wife Elisa, along with our neighbor Sean, feel we must oppose a proposal that will so negatively impact both the value of his property and his family's quality of life, as well as to register our concern that the size of the...
I'll ask you to make your final comment now, please.
This is my final comment, and to register our concern that the size of the current proposal is out of keeping with the modest character of our neighborhood in general. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for the speaker panel? Okay, thank you very much. Moderator, do we have Nuno Paulino now?
Hello.
Hello. Please state
Hi, you can hear me?
We hear you well. State your name, please.
Hello, my name is, hello everyone, my name is Nuno Polino. I own 62 Follis. I've been in this house for 21 years and I've been in the neighborhood for 28 years. I have 3 older children that have gone to Palmerston Junior School across the street, and I now have a 7-year-old who's in grade 2 at Palmerston as well. I've participated in this neighborhood all my life, and this is my hood. I'd like to object to this proposal to add a second, a 2-story addition to the back of this house, and to add a 3rd-story addition to the top of the house. Our houses are 41 inches apart. The walkway beside my house is 41 inches apart. The original house was plucked into this place. I checked all the fire insurance plans. In 1924, it was forced in here, and it was forced into the west and south. It is overbearing. The roof is 18 inches on my property line, over my property line. And this is what I have to exist with it now. At some point, I don't know when, they extended the back and added a cinder block extension of about 8 feet that is set back from the main house by 4 inches. So I have in my dining room, the bay windows, I see cinder blocks for 2 of those windows. The addition of more wall, extending that addition and adding it, going it up, will basically obstruct that bay window. It's going to obstruct as proposed, it's going to obstruct 5 windows on the west side of my house. Now this significantly impacts in a negative way my dynamic, my living conditions in this house. My son's bedroom window will be obstructed. The bedroom window in my bedroom will be obstructed. All the windows in my dining area will be obstructed. And light obstruction is a major impact on a house. It's a way of it's emotional. You buy houses for the light. You experience rooms for the light. You stay there for the light. And so to have walls 41 inches, or I think they're trying to give me 0.45 setback, which is what, 18 inches to some degree, that doesn't cut it. And it's going to have a very negative effect on how we live in this house and how we feel. And I plan on staying here. I have a 7-year-old in grade 2, and this is my hood. This is a wonderful place to live in. And I don't see how they, who are proposing extensions with major window upgrades, large windows for more clear light, affects, to sort of give them all the natural light that they can. Meanwhile, sticking walls on my side and basically obstructing 5 windows. I put it in my letter. If you can sort of raise that up, you can see that the structure goes well beyond all the windows. And so I'd like to say that this is not, it's sort of ironic to me that I'm sitting here watching this screen, and I've been here for a long time, all afternoon, and the committee members are all in rooms that had really beautiful light during the day. I saw it. And that's what's going to be, I want you to envision a brick wall in your windows as you're sitting there. And that's what's going to happen to me. So that's a really big deal. As you can see, the other aspect of this is this house is, it's the cover letter sort of compares it to others, but it's an outline. It sits in front of everything and to the west of everything. It has an impact, it has a presence. So adding density to something that sits there, it's not comparable to any other house in this neighborhood, because it just sits on the property line, both the front and the west. And so therefore, to sort of add mass to this is just to sort of make a situation where originally in the planning of this neighborhood, this wasn't even here. So it's been forced in. And now when you force something in, there are stressors, and now you're adding to the stressors. And on another note, the one that's really upsetting to me is our son, his window is going to be blocked. And our son has a special needs disability, and this is going to be very upsetting to him. He doesn't moderate severe changes very well. So I'm anxious about that, and I guess you can hear that. So in the end, I want you to sort of consider that what this impact is. I have to, it's so ironic. I see one of your members has a background, as a sort of background for him. What did he choose? Was it a brick wall? It's a window with trees. Why? That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's see if there are any questions for you. Mr. Cheng, go ahead.
Hello. Hi, I have a question. Yes, could the city staff open up the survey on the site plan under section B, drawing A001.1. We just want to better understand the existing condition. So your house seems to be the existing one on the left, which extends all the way back.
Yes, my house is a long rectangle, semi-detached home.
So you built, your house were already that big. So the expansion is going halfway to your house.
More than half.
More than half, right?
And covering all the bay windows.
I see.
The middle of the house will be dark. The middle areas, the living areas in the middle of the house that have 5 windows now will be dark.
When you purchased your house, is already this size, or did you?
Sorry?
Did you expand your house, or this is the house you bought many years ago? Is that the footprint of the house?
I haven't expanded my house at all. This is the house that existed. And one of the things I'd like to also point out is there are maintenance costs to losing light. I'm going to have to pay to turn lights on earlier 2 or 3 hours earlier for many more days of the year than I expect to. Why? Because there's no light.
Okay, thank you.
This is living area in the middle of my house that's going to be obstructed by giant walls.
Further questions for the speaker panel? Are there any? If not, we'll return to the applicant for opportunity to respond and rebut. Okay. And applicant, as you come back, there were 2 speakers that spoke. The first speaker was opposed to your variances 1, 2, 3, and 4. Concerned about the impact it would have on number 62, her neighbor, and felt that it was not in keeping with the neighborhood. Then the neighbor at 62 spoke just now and has very grave concerns with respect to the obstruction of windows, loss of light in his home as a result primarily of your, I guess, of your rear extension. If you could address those issues, please.
Yes, I can. So if we can just pull up the drawing that was just up, which was the site plan drawing. I'd just like to walk through some of the context, please. Thank you. So what you have there is 62 Palmerston, 62 Follis, my apologies, which shares a side lot line with 60 Follis. And then what we also have is 768 and 766 Palmerston, which are actually rear yards that back onto the east side yard of the applicant's home. And as we can see there, we have approximately a side yard setback of over 3 meters to provide for the existing driveway. We can also see on this site plan that 766 has enclosed almost their entire rear yard with structures of various kinds. So I would say that the impact of this 3rd story addition is quite minimal considering how large that side yard setback is, where the requirement is only 0.45 if you're not providing any windows, or 0.9 if you have windows, and the fact that 766 does not have a compliant rear yard either. This is the existing condition which currently is here today. With respect to the heights of these buildings, 2 out of 3 of these have 3 stories, including 62 Follis and 768 Palmerston. And if we now go and take a look at the north lot line, because this is a shallow lot, it is not as deep as the others. It was created in 1924, but it has formed the existing context now for approximately 100 years. We can see that the rear lot line for 60 Follis lines up generally with almost the rear wall of 62 Follis. And if we can now go to the figures package that I provided on the context map, what we can see in the inset is that the rear yard of 62 Follis continues way back and actually extends behind the properties at 770 and 772. So they ultimately have their entire rear yard there. The windows that the neighbor is complaining about, they are side wall windows. And in this neighborhood and in many other neighborhoods in the city of Toronto, there are tight side yard conditions with windows on windows. It is common. If we now go to figure 9 in that package, where we have a view of the rear of the existing dwelling at 60, what we can see on the side is the neighbor's property at 62 Follis. Oh, this is the architectural plans, not the figures. Sorry. I'm just gonna wait till you get, yes. So if we can zoom in on, thank you, figure 5 there. What we can see is the existing windows which are blocked, which are currently partially obstructed as well, including that bay window. So we can see the 3 windows that may be obstructed by the proposed addition, considering the fact that the bay window is already partially obstructed. And what we also see is that 62 Follis has created an overlook condition right into the backyard of 60 Follis because it is a larger building. And it is a larger building that extends for the entire length of the property of 60 Follis, and it has a whole rear yard to the back. So typically in dwellings in the city of Toronto, principal windows, when we speak about light, we're expecting that light to come from the front and rear. We all do have side windows. but a lot of time the light that comes in from side windows, it's not as great as the front and rear windows because we have neighbors that have side walls that typically match our neighbors. So if 60 Follis were a regular size lot and it were deeper, we would actually be permitted a building that would match the length of the neighbor's property. And it could potentially also go for a full 3-story length because that's also what exists in the area. And we can see in number 6 there that there have been some taller, bigger buildings that have been proposed and approved at 770 Palmerston that have significantly higher main walls, and they don't have the notch outs that we are proposing. If we scroll up to figure 8, which is just the figure above, we can see the notches that we're proposing at the 3rd story, which provides for very generous setbacks, especially considering the decision we just had with the OLT where only 1.4 meters is required. And we can also see, if we scroll up to the front elevation, the 0.5 meter separation setback that is required by the bylaw because this is a legally non-conforming existing dwelling since 1924.
Thank you very much. Okay, then, at this point, are there any questions by the panel for the applicant? Ms. Valentina, go ahead.
In terms of the 2-story addition at the rear, does that comply with the height requirements of the,
yes,
of the bylaw? It
yes,
does.
it does. It's a 10-meter height requirement and it's under that.
I meant sidewall, sorry, the sidewall height requirements. I mean, I'm assuming the sidewall height variances are triggered by
it's triggered
the
by
third floor?
the 3rd story because it's measured to the top of it, so it's 9.87 meters. So
and
it's
so
measured.
How tall is it? This 2-story? I guess I could scroll through
It's
the plans, but if you know,
meters. It's 7 meters.
Okay.
It's shown right there. 7 meters.
Yeah.
That's the overall height to the full 2nd story in the front.
Okay,
and
I've got
rear
the plan in
of
front of me. I can't read it on my screen, but I've got it here on my computer. Thank you. 7 meters.
Question for the applicant from me, and this relates to your minor variance number 3. Okay, your lot is about half as deep as the lot at 62 and the others down the street. That's a fact. That is simply a fact that a structure must respect. So it kicks in here with respect to your variance number 3, and when you are coming back a full 2 meters from the required rear yard setback, that strikes me as a significant. That's got a lot of impact, especially with the tight setbacks that are present here. So explain to me how I can look at that variance number 3 as being minor.
So I don't think we have tight setbacks here. We have one existing tight setback, which has existed and formed the context of the area since 1924, and it's an addition, so that wall is staying. We are maintaining a very large setback on the east side, and yes, the rear setback is being reduced. However, it's not for the full length. The addition itself already exists, and you can see it in the underlay of the plan. We're only extending it out 3 feet or 0.9 of a meter from what currently exists today. So I would say that is a pretty substantial minor variance. We also have, as I've just pointed out, have a dwelling next door that doesn't even provide a rear yard setback because these are tighter, smaller lots at this corner, and clearly there have been some construction that's occurred, and because of that, trying to fit in homes that provide the needs of people on these smaller lots, there is going to have to be a little bit of wiggle room. Like, this is not a very large dwelling.
Excuse me.
As I previously
Okay, I'm
it's
sorry.
7.24 meters in length. That is not a long dwelling.
No, but we're talking about a lot. So the lot exists as a fact. Its dimensions are factual. I'm still not. I missed how. Yeah, I'd like to pull up the site plan again, so perhaps you can use that to help me here. The rear yard setback is of concern to me, and I didn't get your rationale as to why I can consider that to be a minor setback. It appears to be a significant setback, a significant variance.
So when I look at a variance, I don't look at it necessarily at the numerical degree, but I look at the overall scope of it. A rear yard is still being provided on a lot that is narrower. And in this instance, I believe the typical city standard is on larger lots, 7.5 meter rear yard or 25% of the depth, which means that the standard would actually be larger. If we were to apply that to a smaller lot in this instance, we would only be required to provide a 4 meter rear yard setback because it's 25% of the depth of the lot. So if we're working off those dimensions, but because the standard is 7.5, that's what we have. But as we can see from the plan, there already is an existing rear yard addition that's there. We're only encroaching less than a meter into it, and we're not doing it for the full length of the whole rear wall. It's a partial encroachment.
Okay, so you're already the existing structure already encroaches on that rear yard setback. Is that true? And if so, to what degree?
Yes.
To what degree did you? To what?
6.08, and it's shown there on the site plan, the dimension. It's 6.08. So we're only encroaching an additional 0.9 to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cheng. Question.
Yes, I just want you to open slide number 7, just to double check all together. Slide number 7 under presentation material E4. Wait a minute. It's figure 9. That's what is a photo. Figure 9 is already. So it's actually slide number. Yes, this is the one. So view number 5 inside figure 9. So the question to the applicant is, what you're trying to say is there is already an existing condition with the rear yard setback, and that's this beige.
I get it now. No, I get it now. Thank you. The photograph illustrates it. Okay. Any further questions of the applicant panel? If none, we'll take the application into committee at this stage. Mr. Byatt, question, go ahead.
Daisy here, you're muted.
Hi, thank you so much. Just a quick question for the applicant. The beige structure that's in the back of the house, is that a structure that was built legally?
I couldn't answer when that structure was constructed. I would assume because it exists today that it's illegal non-conforming, possibly such like the west wall of the dwelling because it's constructed right on the lot line. But we did submit a zoning review, and the zoning examiner, identified, it was never identified as being problematic.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, let's go into committee now on this. And who would like to begin? Ms. Hayes, go ahead, please, followed by Ms. Valentini.
Okay. I'll try to start here. Certainly I recognize that this lot of size and depth is not similar to those that are surrounding it. However, it does exist, and we have to judge it on the basis of what's there. I think the existing circumstances of the proper, number 62, their house extends, far beyond and almost to the rear lot line of number 60. That circumstance is something that would cause concerns in other areas if someone was looking to build that beyond someone else's structure at this point of time. I do recognize that there is a one-story addition to the rear now, and what is being proposed is about 3 feet deeper than that and 2 stories high and a little wider. The house itself, as we've heard in submissions, is 11.24 in length, which is not large. I think the context with respect to the third floor setback, the distance it is at front and rear, has tried to be sympathetic to adding some space to this house while trying to lessen the impacts. I actually am in support of the application.
Thank you very much. Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
I agree with what Ms. Hayes has said, actually, and well, not actually, but I do agree. She's raised some of the points that I have raised, and I do appreciate this is going to be a big change for the neighbor, particularly the neighbor at 62, who's had the benefit of having, you know, the windows as they are. But this is not a large house. I mean, the fact that when I heard it was, you know, it's 11.24 meters or whatever it was, just over 11 meters. It's not going to be a large house. And the other thing that I did note is that the two-story addition at the back that will likely have the most impact on the neighbor is concerned about for the window purposes is it does actually meet the height requirements in the bylaw. So, you know, there's not even really technically a variance for the height of that. And I do think the massing for the third story, having it set back, does lessen its impact. So I am in support of the application as well. This is not an easy application by any stretch of the imagination. I think it is a very difficult application, and I studied the plans very carefully, and I think that in terms of building anything else on this lot or any addition, this is sympathetic in terms of you know, how else to add to this property. So I am in support of the application.
Thank you. Further comment? Well, okay, but I would say that having listened to Ms. Hayes and Ms. Valentini, that I do find their arguments on this persuasive, so I would be prepared to support the application, and I'd look to someone for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to move a motion to approve the application for the reasons that have been stated by the committee, and that would be without any conditions. I don't believe there's any conditions on the application.
Thank you. Is there a second? There is. Ms. Valentini. So moved and seconded to approve without condition. Those in favor, show of hands, please. It's a unanimous vote to carry the motion, and the application is so approved. Thank you. We move on to this is called the 2:30 agenda, and so we are beginning on the 2:30 agenda with number 31, 334 Cedarvale. 334 Cedarvale. On this application, here are the materials that we're looking at. Applicant submission, revised site plan 27 October. There are covering letters from the agent, planning brief from the agent from 27 October. There's an arborist report, tree protection plan from July, a previous COA decision from 2013. There's a staff report from community planning. And there are 3 form letters in support from 340, 330, and 338 Cedarvale. And on this one, we'll ask the agent to join us, please. Just state your name.
Hi, committee members. My name is Paige Reisha from Bloom Inc. at 222 the Esplanade, Unit 1121, Toronto, Ontario.
Very good, thank you. Panel members, any questions for this agent? Yes, there is. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Just a confirmation of the material that I read as part of the supplementary materials. In terms of altering the variances being requested, I understand from reviewing the material, number 5, instead of asking for 1.24 with respect to the new zoning review and how things are measured, it's now to be 0.98. Am I correct?
The revised zoning notice says 0.97, but this is
0.97?
also, yes, and there's only actually 4 minor variances. There is no longer 5, and I'm trying to define which one is not there anymore. Oh, okay, I see, sorry. There is 5, but number 2 on the zoning notice is both north and south side yard setbacks.
So variance number 2 should read north and south side lot line, not just north?
They're
Oh,
both,
2 and 3 are the
numbers
same.
all-
Sorry, never mind.
Yes, yeah, yeah, they're all the same numbers, so that's
Do
okay.
you have the meters squared for the new FSI?
Yes, that is 132.07 square meters.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then, staff, do you have these changes to the actual variances? Would you like to repeat it, or? Panel, do you all understand these changes to the variances? I'm going to ask the applicant to go over them one more time, simply what the new wording will read, cite the variance number and what the reading, or what the change will be.
Yes, so variance 5, it's regarding the floor space index. So on the screen right now, it says 1.24 times, which is 166.95. We noticed that there was an error before we had the final cutoff date, so we revised the drawings to show a dimension that would define the basement as mostly below grade, therefore admitting it.
Just give me the number, that's okay. Just the number will do.
Sorry. 97.97, which is 132.07 square meters.
132.07?
Correct.
132.07 and 0.97 is the FSI now, so it's 0.97. Just giving staff a moment here to catch up with you. Because, Paige, we want to make sure that we are altering the minor variances so that they specifically represent what everybody thinks they are voting on. Okay, are there any other changes to the 5 variances?
No.
Just the number 5, and that's the change. Okay. Very good. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant panel? No. Hearing none, then I would look to panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to move a motion to approve the application as amended, subject to the planning condition tying the front yard setback to plans, as I believe what is being requested is indeed minor and meets the tests under the Planning Act.
Thank you very much. Second to that motion is seconded by Mr. Byatt. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to planning condition and as amended. Those in favor, show of hands, please. Motion carried unanimously, and the application is so approved. Thank you very much. We move on to number 32, 78 Wilson Park Ave. On this application, we have the applicant's materials submitted. There is a staff report from Forestry, and there is correspondence in support from 39 Triller Avenue, Trevor Madge. Very good. So let's get the agent with us now. Okay, agent, if you would join us, please, by stating your name.
Hello everyone, my name is Shirin Rahimi. I'm the designer from Squareviz Architects, and I'm presenting on behalf of the owner.
Thank you very much. Now I show that we have one person who wishes to observe, who doesn't wish to speak though.
He is the owner, I believe.
Okay, fine. Oh, that's the owner. Okay, fine. So, panel on this one. Presentation needed, anybody, or would you, or questions? Mr. Byatt, go ahead.
No, actually, I was going to jump the gun and say this is a fairly straightforward application, nothing contentious, and therefore I'd be quite happy to move a motion to approve if and when it's required.
Motion, well, do so now, please. You can do so now as you're here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move a motion to approve the application as is. We only have a forestry condition number 1.
Very good. Is there a second? It is seconded, Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to forestry. All in favor? Show of hands. Motion carried. Application is approved, subject to forestry. Thank you. And we're on to number 33, 135 Winnett. Before us are the applicant's materials. There's a cover letter from the agent, 27 October. And in support, there's correspondence from 326 Arlington, and also 6 form letters in support from 133, 137, 131, 139, 140, and 142 Winnett Avenue. And we will ask the speaker now to join us. Please just state your name.
Jonathan Hatch for 135 Winnett Avenue.
Good afternoon.
My address is 6 Bishop Street, Toronto, Ontario, M5R 1N2.
Good afternoon to you. Okay, thank you. Panel members, are there any questions for the agent? Hearing none, I'll ask who on the panel is ready to move to a motion. Ms. Valentini, go forward.
Thank you. I think this one is fairly straightforward as well. The cover letter provided by Mr. Hatch clearly sets out that the variance is technical in nature for the request for the increase in floor space index because of the no longer requiring to underpin the basement. That triggers the basement to be included in the floor space index, so they're not adding any extra mass or anything to the house. So I think that is minor in nature, and I did note that the adjacent neighbors are fine with the application in terms of there's a rear deck as well. So I would like to bring a motion forward for approval of the application without any conditions.
Thank you. Second by Mr. Byatt. Moved and seconded to approve without condition. All in favor? Motion carried, and the application is approved unanimously. We move on to number 34. 77 Ravina, Crescent. Before us are the applicant's submitted materials and a staff report from Community Planning. And now let's have the agent join us. Just state your name.
Hi, this is Pedro Faustino from 324 Gladstone Avenue, and I am the agent for Tatiana, who is the owner.
Very good. Okay. On this application panel, do you have any questions for the applicant? Would you like a presentation? No need for presentation. Not hearing any questions. In that case, let's move forward with the motion, please. Ms. Valentini, go ahead.
Thank you. I did note that, in my view, this is meets the support test for a minor variance. It's just simply a third-story addition over the existing footprint, partial third story. And there is a deck, and I believe on this one, planning's requesting that condition be imposed for 1.5 meters of privacy screening on the east and west side of the third floor deck to provide, prevent any overlook from the neighbors. So in my view, this meets support tests. So I'd like to bring a motion forward for approval, subject to the condition I just mentioned that's set out in the planning department memo.
Thank you. Seconded by Ms. Hayes. So moved and seconded to approve, subject to planning. All in favor? Show of hands, please. Motion carried. And that application is approved, subject to planning condition. And we go along to the last application in this segment. That's number 35, 21 ALTON. Before us are applicant's materials. There is a 2021 COA decision. And there are two support letters from 17 and 23 Alton. One of those would be next door, 23. So we'll ask the agent, Reiner Hoyer, to join, please, by stating your name.
Reiner Hoyer, agent for the applicant at 21 Alton.
Thank you very much. Panel member, this is your opportunity to put questions to the agent. If there are any. Hearing none, I'll look to the panel for a motion, please. Ms. Hayes, go ahead.
Thank you. I think the variances as being requested, not only from the previous approval, but from the provisions of the initial bylaw, remain minor. I think that meets the four tests. And if my colleagues have no further comments, I would like to move a motion to approve the application with no conditions.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Byatt seconds. Moved and seconded to approve without condition. All in favor? Show of hands, please. Motion carried, and the application is approved by a unanimous vote. Thank you. So, as we begin the 3:30 segment, or group of applications, I beg your pardon. Okay. Okay, well, actually, it's a good typo because it means we're only running 3 hours late rather than 4. And we're not really running late. We've been doing the job that it takes to hear the applications properly with the appropriate detail and in input. So.
Requested on this time slot. I believe the owner actually has a time restraint. We can deal with the deferral request first.
Let's do that. Okay, panel, we do have a deferral request here on number 37 ABC. So let's just go to that agent if we can and deal with the deferral request first. And so we'll ask the agent Shuai Cheng to join us, please.
Hi, Shawnee Cheng. You are unmuted on our end. If you are able to speak, you can speak. You can also increase your microphone volume or unmute yourself on your end so we are able to hear you. Okay. Through you, Mr. Chair, I can try giving the applicant a call.
Well, let's see, we can either do that or we can go, I think, oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Try give the applicant a call. We're gonna, we'll see if we can get the applicant. Okay, go ahead.
Shall we? If you're there, I'm currently giving you a call at your registered phone number. Aishawe, you are unmuted on your phone device.
Yeah.
Aishawe, we're getting some feedback on from the background. If you're able to mute your computer so there's no feedback coming from your speakers, I'll try to unmute you again. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Shawe, if you're on speaker, if you can just use your handset so we don't hear any feedback from the background. I'll try to unmute you again. If you can just mute anything in the background or use your handset. Try again. Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant hung up.
The applicant hung up.
Yeah, I can try giving him a call.
Well, no, what we're going to do
Or
now
take a break.
is we're going to go back to the previous application and deal with it. Because we'll come to we'll come back to number 37 in order. And hopefully we can have clear communication by that time with the applicant. Okay, so on number 36, we do have the following materials before us. Draft plan of survey, all the applicant's materials, cover letters from 27 October, presentation materials 28 October, staff reports, engineering and construction, urban forestry, and there's support, correspondence, 37 Kilberry, 37 Wilburton, form letters from 31 Kilberry and 85 Gormley. There are letters in interest or concern from 14 Wilburton. There is correspondence in opposition from 71 Oriole Parkway, 33 Wilburton, 26 Wilburton, 41 Kilberry, 35 Wilburton. And so we'll ask the applicant now to join us, please, by stating your name.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. We only have about half an hour left of this YouTube stream. Maybe preferable to start a new stream before we hear this item?
Well, maybe it's a good idea. We have a technical issue here, panel, and those watching from home. So maybe we should do the switch over now. That'll give us sufficient time to finish, but half an hour might not be enough time for this application. So we're going to do our switch over now. It takes about 2 minutes to get a new stream.
So for anybody watching on YouTube, this stream is going to end and a new stream will start called PM Part 3.